Right, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to the council meeting for Wednesday the 27th of July. First of all, I would like to call for apologies. I have four, the Mayor and Councillor Angus Mackay for lateness. They're attending Jeff Gearing's funeral, and Councillor John Falloon and Councillor Roger Letham for absence. Do I need to move that they're accepted? Would someone like to move? Councillor Brahm, seconder, Councillor Cameron. All those in favour say aye. Against, no, carried. Thank you. I'll call for any items of extra business. And I'd just like to add here that item number 8 has been withdrawn pending further officer review, and it looks like that will come to our council meeting on the 7th of August. 17th of August, sorry. Any declarations of interest? No. I'd now like to ask everyone to stand and observe a moment's silence for former Mayor Jeff Gearing. Thank you. And just a note here that Mr Gearing served for a total of 7 terms, elected as a borough councillor in 1971 and then as Ashburton's mayor from 1977 until his retirement in 1995. And I also see that he's a life member of LGNZ. Thank you. Next is confirmation of the minutes from the 29th of June, and any changes to page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14. If not, can I have a mover that they'll be taken as read and confirmed? Councillor Wilson. Seconded, Councillor Rawlinson. All those in favour say aye. Against, no, carried. Thank you. Just have to confirm the minutes, the emergency council meeting minutes from the 18th of July. And that's on page 15. Can I have someone to move that they've been taken as read and confirmed? Councillor Brahm. Seconded, Councillor Rawlinson. All those in favour say aye. Against, no, carried. Thank you. Next we have item number 6, which is a report on the Play, Active, Recreation and Sports Strategy, and I will welcome Tony Durham and Janice Mackay up for this. It's on page number 16. We've all read the report. Are there any questions, first of all? Councillor Brahm.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Cameron.
I have a question through the chair to the officer. When we listened to the submissions and discussed and noticed the gaps in the PARS strategy, the Play, Active, Recreation and Sports strategy, as a group we discussed the possibility and the benefits of having an overarching committee or group, perhaps comprising of 1 or 2 councillors and people from Sportman Canterbury and the council, just to keep an eye on the objectives and that they are being met. And that was a reflection of the investment in sport and also a reflection of our obligations to our community with regards to keeping fit and maintaining well-being. I noticed in the strategy it's not in there. Was that an oversight?
Thank you, through the chair. No, that wasn't an oversight. There wasn't a crystal clear council direction, and at the executive table when it was discussed, it was agreed that a more prudent approach of officers' time might be to partner with groups on a bespoke basis, so for a specific project or a specific aspect of the action plan itself.
Do you have a further question, Councillor Cameron?
No, I'll bring it up under discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of the report? No, if not, we do have a recommendation there on page 16. Would anyone like to move that? Councillor Brown?
Okay.
You'll move that?
I will move
Yep,
it.
and a seconder, Councillor Lovett. So we'll go into debate. Councillor Brown.
That's it.
Councillor Cameron.
In reference to the previous question through the chair, we did have a show of hands around the council table, and I think it was a reasonably clear indication, if my memory serves me correct, which it often does, not trying to boast. So clearly that decision was made post that meeting. Can I have some more elaboration as to the basis for that decision? I won't be accepting the strategy or voting for the strategy until that is in, so that we can monitor the objectives, please.
So we're in debate mode, so any... Oh,
So you want us to contribute to the debate?
no. Any further debate? Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going to ask, we do collaborate between all the organisations with this strategy going along, do we not? It's not just put there and shelved and forgotten about and hope everybody follows it to the next time it comes round. Yeah, where do we stand?
We'll go to Hamish.
Through Madam Chair, the reason for our reluctance across the staff is that we've moved past the opportunity for questions, and we know that councillors would more normally ask questions and then move into debate mode without us continuing. If there are still a range of questions that remain unanswered, perhaps we need to kind of relax the distinction between question time and debate, because we're reluctant to debate with councillors the merits, but if there are still questions, and it seems like there might be, perhaps we've got to go back to question time and continue to get some answers before the debate ensues.
All right, let's do that. So I'll go to Steve to answer Councillor Lovett's question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify, the sector best practice for a strategy like this is you would form a steering group that would made up of a number of individuals that would help to drive the actions to make sure they're carried forward. The membership of that steering group, we haven't thought too much about what that would be. Is there a representation of the elected members on that steering group is another option, but we haven't quite thought through that pattern yet. But generally, you have a group of the recreation and play movers and shakers of the district, and then they're the ones that work with staff and the sector to drive it.
Councillor Brown, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm quite happy the way it is. There is enough people there who can make a steering committee out of that. Basically what Councillor Cameron likes to do is getting another layer over the top, and I think we don't really need that. There's enough people there who can handle that.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
I can't see reference to a steering committee in this policy. There may well be one, and I would be grateful if it is in there, but we did discuss it because I think the motivation for the discussion was that there were some gaps through the chair in the objectives that had not been achieved in the previous strategy and the goals, and there was no follow on from those gaps. And I think if we're going to invest both in terms of dollars but also in terms of time and commitment into a sports active play recreation strategy and encourage Maori and Pacifica involvement and encourage youth involvement and female involvement and all the rest of it. We need to have some accountability and some measure of that it has to be a measurable goal, and someone has to say, well, we're on track or we're not. It's too important to review it every 5 years and find that we haven't achieved that, blow. And I think we need to make sure that is in the strategy, and that people, whoever are involved in that and have a responsibility for that, meet 2 or 3 times a year to just check that everything's on track, which I'm sure it will be. I'm not doubting that, but I think we need to have that checkpoint in there.
Thank you, Hamish.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's a distinction between what Steve is talking about in terms of a steering group, which is essentially to try and deliver outcomes against the strategy. That's actually giving effect to the delivery. What I heard through the submissions to the draft strategy was this idea that there was going to be a group involving external people plus councillors to hold council to account for the delivery of the strategy. That appeared to be a strange way of holding council to account. In the end, it's the councillors that hold council to account. And so this idea that you would be wanting to check against their goals and objectives, that is a legitimate function for council. And so I think there is a distinction between this idea of holding the strategy to account and the delivery of the outcomes, and certainly external parties have got a key role to play in the delivery of the outcomes, but I'm not sure that an external group of people is the appropriate mechanism to, in the words that we've heard, hold council to account. In the end, council can expect and demand reports and information to show how council is itself delivering against its strategy. So I think that's where the distinction was. My own recollection is that it wasn't completely clear that the majority of councillors supported a hold to account committee, and that's why we, in considering the final report, did not include that. That's not to say there won't be a really key role for external organisations and parties to play in the delivery of the outcomes, but not this idea of holding to account, which was much more a function we felt of elected members.
Thank you, Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you, and I agree with it the way it is. I think the mechanisms are in there for checkpoints, and I mean all of our policies and bylaws are reviewed 3 or 5 yearly anyway, which is a good checkpoint. But with having Sports House in the EA Network Centre, although they don't run all the sports things, I think that's a good place. People will soon start talking if we're not achieving our objectives.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron.
Just in here, I can't see the steering committee aspect in here. This is a strategy as well, Councillor Rawlinson, not a bylaw, but I cannot see the reference to the steering group, and I'd like, if there is no reference, I'd like it to be inserted. And I think as for council, we hold people to account if we're aware of what we've, and things are presented. And in my very short term as councillor, often there's no clear indication or it's not brought to council. So I just want to be very clear when we have this opportunity that I think it needs to be, if it's in there, then that's good, but it needs to be put in there so that we are seen to be meeting our stated objectives.
Okay, so we've got a recommendation on the table, and you could add an amendment, I'm guessing, would that
Well, it may well be in there. Hamish, I beg your pardon, the officer alluded to the fact that it was in there, but I just haven't seen it, that's all.
I'll go to Tony, sorry.
Thank you, through the chair. So just to confirm, reference to a steering group is not included in the current draft strategy as it stands. In page 22 of the strategy, 2.1.1, there's already a regular sports forum, which is led by Sport Canterbury. So you could potentially dovetail into that if you would like to add a steering group in, or words to that effect.
Given that we've heard from the officer, who's highly respected, that we need a steering group, best practices to having steering group, then I suggest we insert the steering group into the recommendation.
Hamish.
Well, we'll obviously respond to any resolution the council is about to pass. if I look, say, for example, at page 20 of the actual strategy, and the very first objective talks about led by the Community Services Group in partnership with Sport Canterbury. So I think we're actually talking much the same thing. It may mean something different to different people, but the delivery of this strategy can only be done in partnership with external parties, and that is scattered all through this document. If an overriding steering committee needs some careful thought as to what are we expecting of it. And I come back to my point. I don't think that an external steering committee is a normal or appropriate way to hold council to account for its own strategy delivery. That's the councillor's job. So this steering committee might be coordinating and making sure we're delivering against these objectives. They're not going to take over the council's monitoring role. That is your function. So there are a number of references to partnerships, to cooperation, to joining up with other groups, all of which imply that the external organisations are a key part of delivering successfully against this strategy. So I think the language we're sort of using is talking past each other a little bit. The essence of it is actually in here if the word steering committee don't exist. My concern about referring directly to a steering committee is I'm not sure, unless we get some really specific direction as to where you want those words in here and what part of steering committee function there's going to be and what their terms of reference are. If the will of council is that a steering committee needs to be inserted, I think there's more work for us to do. I don't think you can just add it in a resolution and expect us to get it right, because I'm not sure we're going to reflect what it is you're actually meaning.
If we're developing this is a new strategy or a review of the old strategy, the previous strategy had some gaps in delivery. We noticed when it was presented, we did not achieve some of our objectives in the previous strategy. If we are having a new strategy, would we not be best to aim for the best strategy we can do and put gold standard measures in it and an appropriate follow-up? I mean, that just seems to me to be the minimum expectation, that we try and do the best we can. And if that has in there some sort of oversight, I mean, I understand councillors hold it to account, but we held it to account at the last when we discussed a strategy 3 years down the track. So we actually didn't hold anybody to account because we were doing a new strategy. So
So probably going from here, is there support from the other councillors that the steering group is included in the strategy? And if there is, then I think we can continue. If there's not, then I think that we move the recommendation that we have on the table. So I'm just going to do a quick show of hands. Is there support for the steering group to be included in the strategy, or are councillors happy with as it is? So 2. Yep. It's hard when we don't have the numbers. I'll go to Councillor Brahm.
I'm still, what I said before, we don't need it. And as Hamish mentioned as well, we are the ones who are responsible. If we don't like it, we have to say something during a meeting. We don't need another layer above us. So I'm quite happy to move it as it is.
Yeah. And Councillor Rawlinson?
Yes, I'm happy to second it, but the main reason I'd put my light on was under option 1, part 2 says this option would be aligned with the expectations of stakeholders and the community through the process of engagement, and I think that fulfills that need.
Thank you. And I think it's up to the councillors to make sure that it's accountable. So I'll put the motion, which is that council adopts the Play, Active Recreation and Sports Strategy 2022. All those in favour say aye. All those against? Did you want that recorded?
no.
No. Okay. Carried. Thank you. We will move now to item number 7, which is on page 19. The Trading in Public Places bylaw. And we welcome Tony, Mel and Michelle up to the table. We've obviously had consultation, we've had submissions and hearings on this. Are there any questions for the officers, or is there anything you would like to add?
We have nothing further to add, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lovett.
Just in the strategy, the thing itself, we've got a picture of where the trading space is either side of the clock tower, but I wonder whether in the policy we should actually have words to that effect, which a lot of people, flick through and read the policy. And it probably should have the actual wording in there that it's so many metres either side of the clock tower. I couldn't see the actual wording there, but it's on the pictures that you've got sitting there.
Through the chair, we hadn't included those specific words because we thought it was covered by the pictures, but we can add those in if you would like.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. East Street concrete pad, is that the area next to the toilet block? Is the East Street concrete pad, is that how we're going to call it?
Which page are you looking at?
Sorry, I'm just on page 30,
Oh, yeah.
and it's called East Street concrete pad.
So that's obviously where the checkerboard
It
used to
is,
be,
yeah.
is that correct?
But
Yeah.
I think it would be nicer to have a different name. It's even more than a concrete pad. But it's fine, that's the first one. Another thing I've got as well, and we talked about it, but I'm not sure if it comes through. We can't do it this year, but we've got different settings. We've got places without power, and we've got places with power. And I found out it's all the same price. To me, that should be changed. Now, people with power should pay quite a bit more. I know we can't do it now because we've got all the rates set, but I hope it comes back next year so we can change it. Thank you.
Thank you, good point. Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Yes, I'd picked up about the power thing too. And we did discuss that at some point about charging more for those who require power. I support Councillor Lovett in the fact that we didn't define the little space in front of the clock tower, and I drove past one evening a week ago and the three were there, and I'm fully in favour of having three there, but there was one parked exactly in front of the clock tower, and it made me think, yes, we need to just somehow word it that they're either side of it but not immediately in front of it. Other than that, I'm quite happy with it.
Thank you. I'll go to Jane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just with regard to the pricing for the power, we have talked to the commercial manager, Colin Windleborn, about that, and he will be including that in the next annual plan, a new fee for powered sites.
Under the fees and charges.
Yep.
That's good. Thank you. So was that a question about defining the areas so that the mobile shop wasn't parked directly in front of the clock tower? Thank you. I'll go to Michelle.
That won't be possible till we make some slight alterations to where the power boxes are, to have them either side of the clock tower, because they're all between the clock tower and Havelock Street, the power boxes, but we can look at getting them moved the other side of a clock tower.
Thank you. Go to Jane.
Yeah, we're actually doing that through the Bering Square East landscape plan, which I talked to the architect about, and that's in hand.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, we have a recommendation on page 19. Councillor Brown.
If there's no more questions, I'm quite happy to move the recommendation as it stands, that Council adopts the draft trading in public places bylaw 2022 as attached in Appendix 1.
Thank you. Councillor Rawlinson.
Yes, happy to second that.
Thank you. Any debate? I'd just like to say that to thank the officers for putting this together. I think we had a good outcome. We had some interesting submissions, and a lot of them are from the actual mobile shop owners themselves. So I think we've come to a good agreement with the places situated, and some of the submissions of where people didn't want any stalls or mobile shops. We listened to those and have done that, so thank you for that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. Carried, thank you. Right, so we're going to move past item number 8 and go to page 81. And that is the gambling venue policy review, and Tony and Mel, did you want to add anything to this?
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Any questions regarding this? And we've got the social assessment report and the policy, which has had some minor updates, and the recommendation is that we don't go out for consultation. Any questions? Is everyone just finding the scrolling through? Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going to ask, how often do they do the reviews on the public, the questionnaires that go out? Because there must be big changes, you know, reading through it from lockdown, you know, is it every so many years they do them, or randomly, or?
Thank you, through the chair. Just to clarify, are you talking about the data that's feeding into the social impact report? Yes, that's it has been quite consistent, and then we found when we were doing this review that there is a slight inconsistency, which we're assuming is due to COVID with when they're doing the survey. So that's often being run by central government organisations. So we're at the mercy of the data that is available publicly, unfortunately.
Right, and the other question is going to be about Lotto. Do we even know how much that comes back to the district? Or is it just when people, is there a set amount that goes out through districts, or is it just by people applying for it?
Through the chair, I don't think Lotto is part of Class 4 gambling, so it's not something that we've looked into with this review.
I have a question just on, I mean, I know we've got venues around town, which is what the survey has mainly talked about, but there's a lot of other, I suppose you call it almost offshore gambling, where people were gambling on their phones. Do we receive any data regarding that? Because I know that that's become quite a big thing, especially over lockdown, where people weren't able to get to the pokies, and so they were using gambling on their phone. Does any of that data come back to us?
Through the chair, no. I think majority of the online gambling is unregulated.
Right, thank you. If there's no further questions, we have got a recommendation on page 81. There's 2 there. I think we can take those together. Councillor Lovett.
I would like to move both 1 and 2, the recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Brown. Any debate on this? If not, put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, no. Thank you. Right, next item is item 10, page 139. And it's on the adoption of the Waste Management and Minimisation Plan 2022. And we've Neil and Hernando at the table. So we've got a copy of the new plan that's arrived on our desk, and I'm guessing that one of the things that was added was establishing a working group with waste companies to sort of improve services by November 2022, and that came out of the submission and hearings that we had. Neil, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to mention that once this plan is adopted, it means that the actions will be carried forward from the plan into our annual plan and long-term planning. So specifically that refers to the food waste and the green waste. We got a lot of feedback regarding those, and there's a desire to look into those services. So we will develop options for providing those services and then present them to council with costs and to be considered for perhaps the long-term plan.
Thank you. Any questions for Neil or Hernando? Councillor Brown?
Oh,
No. Councillor Lovett?
Just going to go to like education-wise, we do a lot with the children in the schools. Is there anything there in the budget for like a small billboards just out of the town boundaries about take your rubbish home, just where they throw out the car windows their McDonald's wrappers and their KFC drinks containers, because it is becoming a big issue. And, we should have a bit of a budget there to put up a few bits of signage around the county to try and encourage these people to take their rubbish home, that it's in their faces.
Yeah, we can definitely consider that in our action plans.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson? No.
I'm just going to move the motion if there was no more questions.
Thank you. And Councillor Cameron, the seconder? Yes. Thank you. Any debate on this? Councillor Wilson?
Yes, Mr McCann explained it exactly. I had doubts on how we were going to separate food waste from general waste, but he said it'll be presented to a future council with costs and everything, and that's exactly what we want.
Thank you. We did have a lot of submissions on this, which was really good to hear from so many people, and there was some people who really did want the food waste part of it. Others wanted everything combined into a green waste. We heard from a couple of submitters who said that you can't combine the two. So I think we learnt a lot during those submissions. Any other debate? The motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Against, no, carried. Thank you. We're moving fast. Right, page 143, Ashburton Airport Development Plan for Consultation. Welcome Tony and Richard. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you. Anyone got any questions? Councillor Lovett.
Yeah, just reading the summary in the draft there, we want to enable the airport to operate without rates. Will it ever be able to operate without rates? I know it's the ultimate goal, but I'd like to see something, that we're encouraging it to do that, but there must be a better word or something to put in there that we might always have to subsidise a little bit. No, I want it to be affordable to people out there. It was just, wording there. That was all I was wondering about.
Hamish.
What we have heard is that the ratepayer shouldn't be subsidising the operation of the airport, and therefore the direction of the strategy or the plan is to move to a environment where the ratepayer doesn't have to. Of course, if other revenue doesn't meet our estimates and ambitions, there is only one way to balance the books, and we will still have to do that. But everything that we've heard through the development of this plan is to get to a place where it is a self-supporting venture rather than a ratepayer subsidised operation. So we have felt up till now that that language is appropriate for where council has been driving this draft plan.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson, you have a question?
Thanks, Madam Chair. The question is, the answer will be decided once we get people coming back up with the public consultation, I'm sure. The question is, should we put it in there that the airport should be purely funded without any ratepayer money, or not? Do we just leave it for people to submit?
Our approach had been to propose that goal, that aim, that plan. Certainly if members of the public now have a a different view, they will express that to us through the consultation process. So the opportunity for council to think about that language, or even indeed that whether that fundamental aim to have that facility pay for itself is the right thing, then you've got the opportunity when you adopt the final plan to reflect your direction at that time.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is a consultation document, and we are from the start, we talked about user pay. So that is, we discussed, and that's how we came here. So I think it should be coming out as it is, and the public will tell us if we are right or wrong.
Any further questions? Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you, and it was a good read. I learned a lot. Just the summary of the pre-engagement, which was good reading. When was that done? Maybe I missed it somewhere. I wasn't aware that it had been done. Just wondered when it was done.
That took place in February and perhaps early March of this year. So it was a while ago, and we have since then had the emergence of the flight school proposal, which wasn't something that the community was aware about at the time that we did the pre-engagement. And we've also been thinking about the issues around the noise contours, which is also a more recent issue. And so as part of our continuing engagement with airport users and airport neighbours, we are sending them a draft of this and the consultation document. We are updating them on the news around the flight school and the noise contours, and inviting them to participate in the public consultation. And also we're informing them of our plans for an open day where people can come in and talk with staff about the plan. And it looks like at this stage that the Aero Club and the museum might also run an open day and at the same time to encourage people down to the airport to have a look.
Thank you. Well, that's good. It'll be a good, lively consultation process, I think.
And I've got a question as well. In that summary, there were a lot of residents who lived along Morris Road who weren't so keen on the residential hangars. Is there an alternate spot for them where, because I can imagine if people were saying no, we don't want them, then does that mean that that idea just falls over? Could there be an alternate place for them? I couldn't kind of work out where one could be, but is there an option to put that in the consultation?
There's certainly, even at this relatively late stage, an opportunity for people, in fact even on the document as we prepared it, an opportunity for people to tell us on what other parts of the airport they might like to see things located. There's also the opportunity for people to say that they don't like the medium density proposal, which is up to 14 hangar homes, and they might favour low or none at all. That is then a trade-off to be considered against the revenue associated with that. There might be other locations, but some of those might involve shifting the alignment of existing runways, which is not something that the aviators would personally favour. So it could be that to accommodate one group you might have to upset another.
That's fair enough. And my other question is, I know this is coming, where did I see it, to council, and there's a decision in October, so that's obviously early October before the elections, so that it doesn't roll over to the next council.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. Our goal is to get this completed in this term of council.
Great, thank you. Questions, Councillor Brum?
Yeah, basically what Richard said is correct. I was part of that conversation with the neighbours. Yes, some had trouble with the homes and the hangars, but other ones were quite happy. And like Richard said as well, it's in here for consultation and we will find back. And I'm quite happy to move with this for this no more questions.
I think there's a couple more questions,
That's
so
fine.
we'll go to those. So Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. A few years ago, we tried to extend the designation. Have we given up on that in this plan? There's no mention of possibly wanting to extend it or to asphalt the runway or anything. Or are we sort of going to stick on status quo?
At this point, the level of demand and interest has been such that we believe that for the 30-year period of the plan, that the airport can successfully continue to operate with the existing runways and within the existing footprint.
Thank you. Councillor Lovett.
Just following on for that, within the 30-year plan, if there was an opportunity there, if we could purchase some land, we would still be able to do that within that.
The draft development plan does not inhibit future councils if they saw an opportunity to purchase more land from doing that.
Okay.
We're just saying that at this point we don't see that there's a demand there for it, but that doesn't mean to say that commercial circumstances can't change over 30 years.
The other question I had here was the hangar homes. Do we envision these to be permanent living or of a temporary nature?
My understanding is that if, first of all, we've got a whole district plan process to go through before you can establish a hangar home given the current district plan rules. But if we had a district plan that enabled residential activity on the airport, then that would include permanent residential activity.
Okay, and I was just wondering, with the document going out, whether we could just put a bit of a sketch of one, what one would look like to let the public kind of have an idea what they could expect out there.
It's a 30-year plan, but I'll go to Hamish.
Because people in their minds don't really can visualise what...
But neither can we. So over 30 years, I don't know how we could sketch something that would be remotely accurate for a private person to want to develop a hangar home. That's the concept that we're consulting on. This is the overarching plan. How does the community feel about that area being set aside for that activity, as opposed to trying to design it and get everyone to comment on the specific design? It's not at that level for this plan.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know it's a 30-year plan, so things might change. Well, it will change. Life is changing all the time. So I'm quite happy to move the recommendations as they stand on page 143.1, that Council adopts the draft Ashburton Airport Development Plan and Consultation document for public consultation commencing the 29th of July 2022, and that the officers report back to Council on ways to improve fees and charges income from the Ashburton Airport through the 22-23 annual plan budget process.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Lovett? Thank you. Any debate? Councillor Brown?
Yes, I'm quite happy what we've been doing, because it's been sitting there for a long, long time, not going anywhere. So it is really great that we've got some staff here who were really quite keen to get into it and did a lot of work and made it quite easy. Because when I went to the meeting, I was not scared, but I was a wee bit not sure what was going to happen. But it was a great meeting and quite positive. So I'd like to thank the staff for that. It really worked well.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. Carried. Thank you very much. Look forward to the consultation. Right, we'll keep moving. So we've got item number 12, which is on page 178. And this is in relation to the application to the Sustainable Farming Futures Fund, and we have Simon and Richard at the top table. And we've got a recommendation there and nice long report. Are there any questions of either Richard and Simon, first of all? Or is there anything you would like to add to your report?
No, I think the report stands. This is the follow-on from the workshop that we had, just formalising the discussions that happened a month or so ago.
Great, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The total for 5 years is 141,000. Is that the figure that's going to cost the council?
Which page are you on?
Page 203.
That's the annual cost, which includes in kind as well as cash. So 141 includes 121,000 in kind, which is existing resource within council personnel, and $20,000 cash per year.
So that's correct. That'll be a $8.6 million total cost, and it'll only cost us 20,000 cash.
Per year.
annum,
Per year.
Sorry, no, not per year.
That's
8,680,000 over the 5 years, and of that, $20,000 per annum, so $100,000 cash, is council's responsibility.
Do you have a supplementary question? Councillor Wilson?
I might be left till we debate it.
Okay. Councillor Lovett.
Yeah, I might do the same, but a question I want to ask, do you see this as council's core business, getting involved in the farming industry?
So, part of the economic development remit is to help support sectors of our local economy and help, facilitate, enable, grow, make things easier for those sectors to do business for the good of our local community. So in that regard, with the primary sector being such a significant part of our local economy, absolutely the more we can do to stand alongside and assist our primary producers, I think that's absolutely within the remit of the economic development team within council. And more to the fact, we've heard, and you've heard from various primary sector personnel that have been in front of workshops, their need to have somebody who can sit across a broader remit than some of the other organisations in this space and pull the thing together. So yes, our job in terms of facilitating and knitting the process together, I think is absolutely there. And if we don't do it, nobody else has that position that they can do it legitimately. It absolutely sits within our wheelhouse.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I've got two questions. First one, how do you consider yourself with the Mid-Canterbury Catchment Collective that's been started up? Their aim sounds to be much the same.
So we've been working with Angela Kushney as the facilitator. She's been on the working group since the beginning of this project development. So the thinking and the intent, even prior to the Catchment Collective being set up, has been built into this project. So they have strong interest and activities associated around specific catchments, particularly close to rivers and so on. Whereas what we're looking at is a whole regional initiative. So we'll work closely, I guess you'd call it, in partnership with the Catchment Collective to make sure that they're supported with as much expertise as we're able to facilitate within our own program of work as well. So the intention is not to duplicate or replicate work they're doing, but actually to work alongside them.
A supplementary question. I see one of your planks is to teach farmers who you call ignorant about climate change. Are you there to push the government line, or what are you actually going to tell? I mean,
sorry,
the way it reads, farmers are not adopting. They are adopting, and that's what farmers do. And to me, I can't see what we're going to spend 8.6 million telling farmers to suck eggs. I mean, to me, it's a waste of money.
Okay, where did you see, where does it say that?
Okay.
What page are you looking at, Councillor Wilson? So that we are all on the same page and we know.
Madam Chair, just while we find that reference, the last time we discussed this project, we heard from at least 2 farmers who were effusive in their enthusiasm for this project, who felt as farmers on the land that a coordinated approach with the support of all the parties in a connected way was going to provide immense value to them as farmers and business owners in our district for the good of, in fact, I can recall Hamish Maher's comments, for the good of the community, that he wanted to farm successfully and sustainably for many decades to come, so that the community that he cherishes was going to thrive. And at its core, this project is about trying to join up all the thinking, all the disparate groups that are doing a range of great work, but in an unconnected way, into a cohesive body of work to support farmers to continue to be able to farm for the benefit of themselves and their families and community for many decades to come. And so the farmers that were in this room only a short number of weeks or a month ago were very supportive of this project. And the last conversation that council has had in this regard appeared to accept that farmers were behind and cherish this project, rather than feeling that there was some kind of challenge to their capacity to do things properly. That's not part of this project. It's not what this is aimed at. We completely agree that farmers are trying to do the right thing. What they're trying to do in a cluttered and busy world is find a pathway through all the competing information and all the ideas in a collective way to a sustainable future. That's what this project is all about.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Hamish, because basically that was exactly what a question I was going to ask. So I'll ask the question again. I've got the answer from Hamish, but I was here on a meeting. We had young farmers sitting there who told us they wanted to get on with this life and get it going. Is that correct? Thank you.
If I can just add to that as well, Councillor Brown. All of the lead bodies have signed letters of support, so FAR, Beef and Lamb, Dairy New Zealand, the catchment collectives, farmers themselves, all supporting the project. We, Ara Whenua, are in support of the project. We haven't had any pushback. Everybody that's engaged with the kaupapa of what we're trying to do has come away saying, this is an amazing thing, it needs to happen. It will really push Mid-Canterbury forward as a region.
And I think we often hear that farmers aren't supported, and I think this project shows that they will be supported, and especially by council. Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. I've got 2, but I'll just ask one in question time and one in debate, if that's right. So my question is just on page 183, the significance and engagement assessment. Just wondered why the first comment is the matter considered significant, and the explanation is no. And from the investment in it and the work that's going in, and I'm not against it, so don't think that, why would that be no?
Can I refer the question to Tony, who does our work on significance, but essentially think of significance work as focusing on what this report is asking council to do. This report is asking council to support an application to MB. That's not in and of itself a particularly significant thing. We might make funding applications for all sorts of things all the time. So it's not to say that the work that might come from a successful funding application is not significant. It might be massively significant. But all we're asking you to do today is to support an application for funding. That's the decision. That decision is not massively significant in and of itself. But Tony may well be able to
We'll go to Tony.
elaborate further.
Through the chair, I can't put it any clearer than that.
Okay,
It's bang on.
sorry, and I was taking it around the significance of the project.
Right.
It's not, it's the fact of do we or don't we? Okay.
Yeah.
I've got more to ask, but I'll do it in debate.
Okay.
If we don't have any questions, I'd like to move the recommendation, please.
We've got a couple of questions, but I'll come back to you for the
Okay. Shall I put my light
recommendation.
off?
So next is Councillor Lovett. Question?
The question I want to ask is, all the information you're gathering, this was put to me by somebody in the industry. You're going to be gathering up a lot of information. A lot of it's going to be personal to businesses and farmers. How are you going to deal with this, that it doesn't end up in the wrong hands, in government hands going down the line? Because this is what happened to Overseer. It was a program set up for the farming community to use on our land, and then the government came in and took hold of it and ended up as a regulatory tool. And that is the question that's been asked of me. How are we going to keep that out of that scenario down the line?
Richard?
Sure. So there's three parts to this project. So there's a research piece, a tool development piece, and then a supporting farmer adoption piece. So the research is the research. It's based around whatever scientific inquiry we make. The tool relates to the ability for farmers to use that information in an applied way in their farm. But where the personal information, if there is any at all, would sits at a discrete level, at a farm level. So the way that this project is primarily going to operate is that farmers will work together amongst their peers and groups, and they'll determine what they want to follow up on. They'll determine what their priorities are and what they're going to do about it. So this project won't be gathering farm production information. It won't be gathering personal information other than perhaps their participation in a group. So there's very, very limited risk. In fact, I'd say no risk of anything that would be useful for someone who had devious intentions with any information. So there's not research or not production data that's going to be gathered that could be used against farmers.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, what happens at the end of 5 years? Do you anticipate the council picking up the funding, or what will be the position then?
No, I mean, what we're hopeful for in 5 years' time is that the industry see the value of this and continue on those farmer-led learning groups and application. We have universities and CRIs producing better information for farmers that is much more transferable into practice than the current information we're seeing. The research report that the agribusiness group did was quite scathing about the quality of scientific information that's being given to farmers and the complexity of trying to untangle it all to understand what you actually do on your farm. So, and farmers in a focus group, so we had 30 to 40 farmers came to a focus group at the Ashburton Hotel talking about these issues, and they were really clear that they've got a massive job to do, and they're being hit by legislation, which we've identified around the table time and time again. And just the sheer amount of stuff that they've got to get through and process is really hard. So we're hopeful by bringing them together and that shared learning, shared application in farmer groups will continue beyond they'll see value, there will be value, and we'll see that manifest beyond the length of the project, and then our role will not be like it is here now.
One more.
Supplementary. Yep.
have you spoken to the dairy advisory group? They provide on-farm advice. Will they be against opposition to you, with you? Where will they sit?
So you're referring to Dairy NZ? Yes, so we've engaged, Dairy NZ have been involved in the working group from the beginning. I describe their involvement and their participation as enthusiastic. And so they're a signatory to the letter of support that was tabled at the working group. And so we've had regular and ongoing discussions with them, and to the extent that they're looking at targeting some of their investment into mid-Canterbury, particularly based around the outcomes of this project. So they're very supportive.
Thank you. I've just got a question, and it's probably written in here, but I can't seem to find it. So when you, if the recommendations moved and the application goes in, how soon will you hear back whether it's successful or not?
So the indication we've had, and the steps from here, is that the proposal is passed through to MPI to make an informal assessment and feedback, which we'll then take on board and incorporate as appropriate. From there, once the MPI management team across New Zealand are comfortable with the quality and the details in the proposal, then they'll take it through to what's called the independent advisory panel, and so they're Wellington based, and they'll make assessment around whether or not the project proceeds to business case or not. So the MPI managers, that turnaround is, they say, about a week, and then the investment panel meet monthly, and so once it gets to the investment panel and they go, yes, we want it, or no, we don't, yes, we want it, moves to business case, that could be around about 8 weeks from now. And then from there, we'd have about 3 months, is about what they tell us is the normal time frame for creating the business case. Then that business case goes back to the independent assessment group, and then they determine a final yes or no for funding.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, do you have a question?
No,
or are you
move the
wanting
motion,
to
please.
And Councillor Brahm, you're happy to second?
I'll second that.
We'll go into debate. Councillor Brahm.
Yes, I'm not a farmer, but I'm living in a farming community. My choice, and I'm happy here. Over the last couple of months, certainly more than that, over the last year almost, there's a lot of things happened here. And this fund application to help farmers, and to me, is a no-brainer. If the farmer's doing well, this whole district does well. I wish, to be quite honest, when I had my business, that I would have had the support of what the farmers will get out of this. We had young farmers here. A lot of people were really in favour for it. I certainly am too, and I hope it's going. Hopefully we get past it and get money for this district and the farmers.
Thank you. Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. Just looking at my notes as I jotted them. I support the document. I think it's very well written, and having been a farmer until 18 years ago, I totally understand, although farming's certainly changed a lot since I was farming. But my concern or my question is around, if you're successful with it, and I hope you are, that going forward, is the council going to be the overarching contact person of a group, or people want to be involved and use the expertise or use this document? How are you going to carry that into the community? And the reason I ask is because how often do we hear, oh, the bloody council did this or the bloody council did that, which I've heard a lot lately. How are you going to get over that sort of attitude of community to council, that people will associate a council with this sort of work? That's where the background to where I'm coming from.
We are in debate mode, but I'll let Simon answer this
I
question.
thought it was too long to put in question mode.
It's okay.
Fine.
I think this project has always been by the community, for the community. What we're doing is adding a layer of facilitation, grease in the wheels, bringing the groups together that may not naturally always talk together. And I'm thinking about, in some cases, the regulators being in the room with the people that they're regulating against and understanding the issues so they can make better decisions. Environment Canterbury, who are ultimately going to be the watchdog, are part of the project group, and they're, for the first time, they're sort of saying, you know, this is one of the few occasions they're actually working hand in glove, and there are really good outcomes that can be made without the need for regulation. That would be phenomenal for our farmers if we can achieve that. If nobody gets regulated against, and we manage to move the dials so that we have healthy businesses and a healthy environment, I think we're all winners in this. So, you know, that, for me, it goes back to this is a community project that will be led by the community. We're just going to make it move fluidly.
So going forward, I mean, it's good while you guys are here because you know what it's about and you're driving it, but going forward, how are people going to know about it? I mean, unless it's all over the feds and in the farming community. That's just my concern. I've been involved in through agricultural industry and other smaller scale things of this and with the same funding group, but in the end of the day, it all fell over because nobody carried it on and drove it.
I'll allow this question, but we are in debate mode. So,
or is this not debate?
Well, we can't debate with the officers. We need to debate with the councillors. So, Richard, if you'd like to answer that question, that's fine.
So a fundamental basis of this whole project is the collaboration. So the working group, which is made up of the industry bodies and farmers and regulators and Arawhenua and the collective, they're the ones that will actually carry the message beyond the council presence, if you like. And so the effectiveness of this is actually all of those parties working with their people, working with their networks and with their farmers and so on to actually make or help farmers make the changes that they want to make. So it's not going to be dependent on what the council does from a day-to-day basis, but we sit in the background and actually those other organisations make this happen. And so in 5 years' time, to Stuart's question previously, it may be that council has no role because this actually has a life of its own, and that would be success for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
I was going to do the right of reply, but I'll wait till after.
Okay, we've got, still in debate mode, we'll go to Councillor Lovett.
Yeah, I can see where you're going, but as an industry now that's very heavily regulated, I can see this actually putting more pressure on the farmers, and we all belong to these like beef and lamb and far and stuff, and I can only see them to cover the cost of this as putting up our levies, which we're all against now with what they're doing. And because
we are in debate, mate.
Yeah, we are in debate. And I know there's a trend now at the moment to move away from sheep and cows, and they want us to start growing all this plant-based food for these new foods they're trying to bring. And I just hope we don't head down that line, because we've got some of the best farmers in the world living in this county. And, you know, with all the production we're putting out, growing the carrot seed for the world and the radish seeds, we can't afford to let that go, because next thing you won't be able to buy carrots and, you know, in the food industry. There's a fine balance here, and yeah, I just don't know where we're heading with it all down the line. It just seems to be government come on board and it gets driven one way, and a lot of the young farmers are just starting to get fed up with being told what they can do and grow on their land. And we want to farm. We want to farm on private land what we want to farm for the contracts we get. And we are. We believe in the climate change. It's always a changing climate. We're always adapting our crops, and there's always new crops coming out. And we've got good farm advisors and firms backing us. And I know where you're coming from with this, but I'd hate to see the whole industry in a big turmoil. And Yeah, that's just my point. And reading some of it, it was sort of belittling, you know, thinking farmers don't believe in climate change, but we live in a changing climate. You know, we're workers, we work with it. We're not modelers and, you know, computer modelers. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, I'll support the recommendation, and I hope it achieves what they set out to achieve. But having been a farmer over a long-term period, the best advice or progress you made is when a group of you swap balance sheets, you go into financial things, you see what your fellow farmers are doing, compare notes. This is going to be high. Whether it's going to actually achieve what you hope, I hope it does, but I can't see it. A discussion group that digs into things like with farm consultants, that's where you really make the nitty-gritty progress.
Thank you, and I also support this. I think as council, as leaders, need to support our agricultural community, and I think this is a great way of doing it. And I'll pass to Councillor Cameron for a reply.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I concur. I think the role of council is to support all aspects of our community, and a significant part of our community is our rural friends, colleagues and farmers. This, and if we can support them by providing accredited, validated information, I think it's a very valuable service that we offer. I think legislation is changing for all industries, and all industries deserve our support, but if we can support the rural industry, then that is a massive opportunity for us to do and address a need, essentially. So I think I congratulate you on your proposal. I think it's really great for relatively inexpensive cost in terms of dollars, and I think to provide a source of valid information, you know, accredited information is a very valuable resource, and I think be much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Against? Would you like your vote recorded? No. Thank you. Carried. Thank you both. I'm going to, I see Bill is here and we have Georgie online, so we will have our presentation from Waitaha Health. We've just got we've just got to get it up on screen, so that won't take too long. But welcome, Bill and Georgie. Hopefully you can hear us.
Hello?
We've just lost Georgie. Have we just lost Georgie?
Push the right button.
Sorry, Alex, just checking. Is Georgie still on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Georgie?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear us. That's good. You just kind of disappeared from our screen, so that's great.
Can't always guarantee the internet's amazing, so.
Okay. No, that's all good. Thank you. So welcome, Bill. Thank you for coming along to our meeting today. I believe you've got a presentation for us.
Just got a few slides. Yeah.
And we'll just take some questions at the end if that's okay.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Look, thanks for the opportunity to address you all today. There's no doubt about it with the health changes. Our relationships with the territorial local authorities, and Ashburton being one of them, is critically important as we develop partnerships to address health and well-being of the populations that we serve. So today I've got a few slides, but before I go any further with my slides, Georgie is a board member of Waitaha Primary Health. She's the representative from Ashburton, nominated by the Ashburton District Council. I'm going to ask Georgie just to say a few words first, and then I'll go through, and I've got a few other dot points that I just wish to raise with you all today, so I hope that's okay. Georgie, come in, please.
Oh, thanks, Bill. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us here today. I think these catch-ups and updates and questions are really important. It's been a busy time for everyone in health, as you'll all be aware, obviously with COVID-19, flus, weather events, everything. Since we last spoke, it really has been mostly about COVID from my point of view. Worked pretty closely with Bill and the team at Waitaha to facilitate things like getting RAT tests out to some of the more rural and remote areas. So we've got a really good system now where they're freely available at the Mount Summer store and Mayfield School and things like that. And we'll be doing the same with masks. So I think that's a Goodway initiative that's worked really well, especially with people having to get into town. It's just a bit of a nightmare if you're isolating and things. So it's been really good. I had met with Neil a couple of times, and he'd asked me to pass on a few concerns that he'd heard. And Bill and the team, what happens is, we give an update at the meetings, and then the executive get on working on the issues that we raised. So he'd raised a couple of things, which I'm sure many of you may have heard, some of the things around access to GP services, just the number of GPs, wait lists, and also being able to get enrolled in a GP. That seems a bit of a nationwide problem, but it's something that we're all very well aware of. There was also some concerns about patients who are being transported from Ashburton Hospital to have a procedure done in Christchurch and then not always being able to get back home to Ashburton, which is obviously a bit of an issue. So I understand Bill's followed up with the DHB about that one. We've also touched on things like flu vaccinations and the rollout alongside COVID vaccinations and their rollout. It seems to be really successful in groups like over 65s. There's been some feedback from other pockets of populations that have found it harder to access, but again, working on that with some really great initiatives that are coming through, which Bill can probably touch on more later. Just to say that I feel that Bill and the team at Waitaha are working really hard in some really challenging times. We're working through COVID. They're also working through some major restructures in the health sector. And Bill's doing it, keeping everyone up to date, keeping us onto the changes as he possibly can, and, really doing their best. So I just wanted to pass on my thanks to Bill and the team. I think they're serving the community pretty well. And just to put it out there, that my role is to represent the voice of Ashburton District on this board. So if you ever have any concerns or constituents come to you with queries, or there's not a health committee as such with the Ashburton Council. I know that some of the other reps, they attend one of those like every other month or something like that. But I do have not infrequent meetings and catch-ups with Neil, but if any of you ever feel like you need to raise something, I'm open to any thoughts you have about how we could do that. But in saying that, I'll just hand over to Bill because he's got a great presentation with some good numbers.
Yeah, thanks, Georgia. Yeah, you've covered off quite a few things that I was going to cover off. Anyway, look, I'll just quickly go through the slides, and then I've just got a few dot points that I'd like to raise, and then we'll open it up for questions. So the slides that I'm presenting now were as at 8 o'clock yesterday morning. I could have done it for 8 o'clock this morning, but I wasn't just too sure if I could trust the whole system to make it sure. So as you can see, 211,220 COVID cases across Canterbury. So if you think of a population of around 500,000, we're starting to get up to nearly 50%. We are still seeing quite high COVID numbers each day, and so you can see that on Monday there was 1,275 cases, which equates to 8,592 active cases, and then we've broken it down in the bottom part of that diagram up there by TLA, Territorial Local Authority, and also by ethnicity. So you can probably see there for the Ashburton at the moment, of the 1,275 cases on Monday, 2% was related to Ashburton. So that's how you read that. So you can see the ethnicity numbers there and the percentage of ethnic groups. So if you look on the far right-hand side, 34.8% of our Māori population across Canterbury have had COVID, compared with the Pacifica group or other Pacifica people, which is 39%. So Pacifica has been an area that we are concerning, and
what I want to try and express to you all is the partnership arrangements that we have, not only with pharmacy here in Ashburton but across Canterbury, but also with the likes of E2 Pacifica, the Pacifica providers, the Maori Health providers, so that we can capture the population and make sure that we are recording cases. Now, these figures, I would like to tell you that if people aren't recording it, then you have to take note of that. So we do believe that 1275 cases on Monday is probably an under-reporting target. So I just want to give you a little bit of a qualifier on this particular information. The next slide here is just to show you a little bit more just around our Pacifica people, 7,343 cases. And again, I've broken that down by territorial local authority, so you can see Ashburton there, 35.6% of the Pacifica population in Ashburton District have had COVID. And then you can equate that to the percentage of the territorial authorities and the other slides, active cases and the new cases in the last 24 hours, so 30 Pacific cases. And then, of course, I can do the same for Māori. And you can see there that 19,000 cases for Māori across the district, across Canterbury. And you can see the number of cases there. And then, of course, the arrows down below show you the percentages by territorial local authority. So Ashburton, 28.6%, which is a little bit lower than other areas, Selwyn, Christchurch and the Waimaka area. I just want to just touch base quickly on the flu vaccination programs, and this slide is targeting the Ashburton district. And again, I want to reiterate my thanks to the pharmacies that have supported our very busy general practice teams to get the flu vaccination rates as you see them today. So you can see the target has been on the over 70s, and as you can see, the 61% to 75% of the Ashburton residents have been vaccinated for flu. And then down below there you can see the number of vaccinations by percentage, by ethnicity. So you can see why we're still concentrating on Māori and Pacifica people. And on the 7th of August, my team, in conjunction with E2 Pacifica, will be in Ashburton. It's a Sunday, and we will be having a vaccination day for this. Now, when I say this is targeting flu vaccinations, at the same time we will be targeting second booster COVID shots as well as MMR. So we're trying to actually do the whole lot if we can get together. So the last time we had our Pacifica Day down here in Ashburton, we did 262 jabs. And so you can sort of see if we can do 262 jabs again across those three areas that I've just said, it lifts our percentages quite nicely. But we cannot do it ourselves. We have to partner. So that's that slide. And that's just my 4 slides that I just want to talk. So there's just a few other things I just wish to raise with you all now. General practices across Canterbury have been under the pump, okay? No mistake about it. They are working. And I will say this, well supported by our pharmacies. That's the third time I said that today. I want to stress that point. But also, there are other welfare providers that are also helping it. And, you know, we as Waitaha appreciate the linkages that we have with Jim, Civil Defence Controller, and the welfare committees. We do work alongside you folks very closely. So Georgina mentioned around rats and mask distributions. We will be working with the welfare groups there because the government's desire is that every household will have a box of masks. Now, we can't expect pharmacies and general practice to do that piece of work. They are just too busy. So we're going to have to rely on the likes of the initiative of just dropping a box off at Mount Summer stores that has worked well for us, working with our welfare groups to get that out. And that piece of work across Canterbury is well underway. So we are working with our territorial local authorities, both in Hurunui, Waimaka, Banks Peninsula, and of course Ashburton. Antivirals. This is a major piece of work going on, and there's been a few challenges over the last week just regarding training of the pharmacists to provide antivirals. So Carolyn, is there any update that you can provide which is probably more up to date than I can provide?
I think there were some problems last night with the
training.
And they're having another go tonight, and they're recording it.
Right.
And I think the first tranche of pharmacists is going out in about another What are we today? Another week almost at the most, and then they're doing the second tranche after that.
So can you just explain to the group the antivirals? What are we targeting here with the COVID and our
There are
second
specific
wave of sickness?
antiviral medication for COVID, like there's old-fashioned antiviral medication like acyclovir. These are new modern antivirals that improve the survival rate for those at risk if they have COVID. So it's mainly the elderly or the immunocompromised. Up to now, people have had, at the moment, you are not able to get them prophylactically, so in advance of getting COVID. You are able to get them if it's reasonable that you would, your husband's got COVID, so it's reasonable to expect that you'd be able to get COVID. Up till now, you've had to go to your doctor to get the prescription, and then you go to a designated pharmacy and they look at particular requirements like your renal function, your other medication, because there's a lot of drug interactions and whether it's appropriate or not. They can alter the dose based on this information, or they can decline it. Basically, you wouldn't be an ideal candidate. The doctors are very busy, and as we know, we're very short of general practitioners in Ashburton. So throughout New Zealand, the government have said that pharmacies are able to do that if they have access to the appropriate information.
And they complete the training.
And they can complete the training.
There will be communication coming out about this, and so I'll be relying on our colleagues over here to disseminate that so that everybody is aware of what's going on. So as Carolyn mentioned, general practice is very busy, and of course the last 2 or 3 weeks have been compounded by surplus water blowing around and sickness, not only staff sickness but also sickness at home, and of course school holidays have also compounded some of the challenges we've experienced over the last wee while, which has created higher demands for after-hour services, which has impacted on our EDs in Christchurch, and of course the increased workload of your local AAU down here, so we acknowledge that. As I say, we're doing all we can to try and address those things. So like even in Canterbury, some of the after hours up there, they've had to close on the weekends because they haven't had the staff to man it. So I'm just trying to give you a bit of a picture of what we're dealing with. The hospital itself in Christchurch is totally under the pump. I think the last figure I heard, they were about 107% occupancy. So you can sort of see what's happening. And basically, general practice and pharmacies collectively together, in conjunction with St John, we actually are doing reasonably well because of the number of people attending ED at the moment in Canterbury, 35% of those are being admitted. So what I'm just trying to share with you is that the triaging processes is actually working reasonably well. Also, just like to update you a little bit on the huge changes that are going on in the health sector at the moment. You're all aware that DHBs, as we know it, went out the existence on the 30th of June, and Te Whatu Ora came into existence on the 1st of July. We have been working across this and how this works, and it's very, very clear to me that partnerships are the key of health service delivery into the future. And so we are pretty fortunate that we do have a number of partnerships in operation. We will have to rely and strengthen our relationships with the TLA. You folks will have a major part to play in establishing these localities. Ashburton will be a locality most likely. You've got 35,000 people here. So, you know, these are sorts of things. So one of the things that I am very pleased, and I was just pleased to hear the previous discussion just around rural and supporting rural. Waitaha has been working very closely with an organisation called Haurora Te Whenua, which is the old Rural General Practice Network, and we have been successful in working with our various political parties to get rural into the Paeroa Future Healthy Bill. So it's not just Māori and Pacifica and the disability and women, which are all equally important. We've also got rural in there for the first time. And part of what has been tasked by the various, by Cabinet, is that they have to develop a rural health plan. And that piece of work is getting underway, and I can assure you that workforce is very much part of that plan. So that's just where we are. I can't share too much more with you really what's happening at the moment, but if you invite me back, I might be able to give you a little bit more of an update in 3 or 4 months' time, what the health changes mean to Ashburton. And I'm sure that you'll be pretty interested in that. At the moment, we're also doing a little bit of work around after hours here in Ashburton. We've got a little small project underway just to sort of see how we can strengthen our after hour coverage. Whakarongaro is a telephone triage service, and unfortunately the DHB, because of their current fiscal challenges, they withdrew that service. And so we're just working through that to see what's happening at the moment. So that contract with Whakarongoraua is still in place till the end of September. So no changes at the moment. But again, I'll be talking with Philippa and co just about how we can disseminate that information out to you. St John Ambulance. Again, I just want to reiterate our support for them. They also have been totally under the pump. They've been sending staff to Auckland to support them. They've had 10 trucks up there that they've had to lay up because they haven't had the staff to do that. So just give you a bit of an idea of some of the things that we've been trying to deal with to try and ensure the well-being of our people across Canterbury. So there has been challenges, and it's even compounded in the last couple of weeks by all the excess water. Would be remiss of me not to mention mental health. I can assure you that we are pretty concerned about this. We are doing all we can to increase mental health services across Canterbury. And the reason for that is the current economic climate. Not only are we just dealing with COVID and flu and floods and all those sorts of things, we are dealing with increased interest rates, which are compounding. So to give you an idea, last month we saw a 40% increase in our referrals from our general practice teams, and the acuity of those 40% were a lot higher than we've previously been seeing. So I'm just trying to give you a little bit of feel that the health system at the moment is totally under the pump, and we're all working together. So that's where. So I'm just going to leave it now. Georgie, have I covered things off? Is there anything else you wish to raise before I open it up for questions?
No, it's good, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Georgie, that was a really good overview and update. Everything, there's a lot happening, I suppose. I have a couple of questions, and I mean, we get sent the COVID numbers every day, which is good to see. How accurate are they, do you think? Because we're relying on people to put their own, to text in or fill out the form or whatever online and say, yes, I've got COVID. But I was reading somewhere that they're still testing the wastewater, and that seems like it's actually showing that there are more cases out there than we think there are. Is that correct?
A very accurate summary.
Yeah.
I can't really add to it. Look, I can't give you a percentage figure of how inaccurate those figures are. Those are the figures that we are seeing. Yes, the wastewater samples being taken are telling us a very different story. So, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll go to just another note. So council have masks or boxes of masks that they are putting out in different locations around the district, and people can come and help themselves to them. I think I saw some comms on that. Georgie, you mentioned that you're placing them up in Mount Somers, Mayfield, etc., because I think there were a couple of comments on Facebook saying, are there any in Mayfield? So it's good to hear that between us we're sort of covering that, but I'll go to Hamish.
Yeah.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We've been focusing on distributing the masks from our own facilities.
Yeah.
And of course we don't have manned facilities in every corner of the district. So I think what we've been trying to do is complement with the health system to make sure that everybody can get access to their masks. They've been very popular here in Ashburton. We know they're flying out of the library, for example, and they had to get restocked, I think yesterday or this morning. So it's certainly been much appreciated, and the idea of the free masks has resonated with a lot of people who were perhaps struggling to buy them. So it has been a very well-received initiative.
Yeah, thank you.
We thank you for your support.
Yeah, Georgie, did you want to comment on that?
Oh no, I was just going to say that we'll have the free mask running from next week, but if there's a couple of boxes lying around the council somewhere, we can start that up as soon as possible. Like I've been
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talking to
Georgie, you're cutting out a bit. Sorry.
Certain places. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we're getting about every third word, I think. We'll keep going with questions. Councillor Brahm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Bill. And I believe exactly what you said. The GPs are working hard. The pharmacists do it. But we can't blame it all to COVID and flu, is it? You know, we've got a shortage of doctors here locally and rural. How do you see, how can we fix that? Is it going to be 5 years, 10 years, or do you think it will be only next year? Because going to a doctor at the moment, if you've got COVID, you can't go there. If you've got a flu, you can't go there. If you've got normal small things for a lot of people, you can't get there. Or it takes you a month, or you can't get operation. I know I hear what you said, and we're under the pump, all the bits and the pieces. Yes, we are, but it's not only COVID and flu. There's a lot of things not being done right over the last 10, 15 years. I'm not a doctor, but that is my feeling. Why don't we have enough doctors, for example?
I think one of the issues is the training schemes that are in New Zealand, Otago and in Auckland. When these graduate GPs are coming out, they do have student loans, and what they're doing, they've been offered very big money to go to rural areas in Australia, and so they take off. We've also been seeing quite an exit of our nursing team from our primary care facilities, and that is the reason for that is that there's quite a large wages variance between what's been paid by DHBs for the nurses as well as what's been paid in primary care. We are trying to address that issue. You asked for a time frame. Look, I can't honestly answer that at the moment. We are still trying to recruit GPs into the country from overseas. The Medical Council probably needs to do a little bit more to support us in rural placements, etc. But that's what we're working through at the moment. We're hoping that the Rural Health Plan, as part of the Paeroa Future Healthy Bill, will start addressing some of these things. We've already started developing a workforce plan so that we can actually start moving forward. But any training that occurs today, it's 5 years. So it's not going to be a 6 month, 12 month, 18 month turnaround. We just got to work through this. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's where we are.
Just one more question. So are we not paying enough our GPs or nursing staff, or is it crazy money overseas? How do I have to see this?
Well, if you talk to those if you talk to those GPs that are just graduating and going to Australia, they wouldn't think it's crazy money. They're going there because they want to actually get on with their life and pay off their student loan, so they can go. So, but that's our reality at the moment. So that's one issue that we have to sort of begin to address. Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome back to the Mayor and Councillor Mackay, and I'll vacate the chair once we've finished this presentation, but I'll keep going with questions. Councillor Lovett.
Just adding on from that, years ago when we trained, like nurses, and I was a dental nurse, we were paid training and bonded at the end of it. And we're at a meeting the other day, Rural Women, and we're just talking about bonding again. Do you see that could happen in the future, that you pay these students to learn to be trained to be doctors and you bond them for 2 years here in New Zealand before they go off overseas? Because at the moment we just seem to be training and they've gone.
Yeah, I think I like your question. We're not just talking about GPs and nurses. We're talking about midwives. We're talking about allied health. We're talking about the gambit of health professionals. So, yes, bonding is part of what what has been looked at to sort of see if we can get people from, say, Greymouth or Westport or Ashburton, take on the sciences at their school age, and then actually see if we can actually work with them to say, hey, bond them into Ashburton when they're finished. So those are sorts of things that we are looking at, but again, it's not going to be a 5-minute one to fix it.
No, but we could make a start. And then I was thinking about the ambulance as well, the days of the volunteers. No one wants to really volunteer for years on end. Do you think we need to start doing the same with staffing these ambulances, because they're laid up without staff? That's just another idea.
There's been a lot of discussions around St John Ambulance and St John Ambulance funding. So your question fits into that. There's been some questions, why isn't St John Ambulance funded the same as FENS? And we are very, very fortunate that over 20 odd years that I've been doing this job, we have built very strong working relationships with FENS and our local St John's to complement each other. So most of our FENS guys are first responder trained now, which supports our primary care, prime prime people.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, afternoon, Bill. I'd just like to comment on your Ashburton flu vaccination graphs. The average age of the Maori and Pacific Islander in our district will be quite young. And the elderly over 65s, I think pharmacists will say the majority would be European based. So it's not, it looks bad, but I don't think it'll be quite as bad as that, because as I say, the Maori Pacific Islander young people, there's a big percentage of them will be, under 20, under 25. So those figures look terrible, but I don't think they're quite as terrible as they look.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have to agree with that comment. I don't know what else I can say. These are the reports that I get off from the Canterbury Primary Response Group to give us a bit of a feel, but I could probably go and break that down further for Ashburton if you'd like me to do so.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you, and thanks for coming and talking to us, and for Georgie online. My question's around the nursing problems or the issues. Obviously a lot stepped out due to stress. You see that and hear that all the time, or they were out if they were unvaccinated. And my question is around what's being done to attract people back. Is it about wages, or was it because they see that the system could go back into is failing? What's being done to try and get some of those? And I suppose it's probably more the middle-aged people who've had part of a career there and went out for one reason or another, but can't come back or won't come back.
The current funding model for primary care is being addressed right at this very moment, and I hope that will address some of the issues that you just asked about keeping nurses back into and keeping them in primary care. So again, it's not a 5-minute wonder, but hopefully that this piece of work that's underway at the moment, we'll start seeing that piece of work coming out within the next 12 months.
Because I often think if you could get half of the nurses out that went out would help fill a lot of those gaps that are there. Thanks.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. But following on from Diane, I know a lot of middle-aged ex-nurses, very good nurses, but had their family, but to come back into nursing, there's quite a hurdle. They have to go through a lot of new training. Even to vaccinate people, they had to be trained, whereas a lot of them were very experienced in that type of thing. Is there any way of short-circuiting sort of to get former experienced nurses back into the workforce?
Carolyn, can you answer that? I'm just not too sure.
I think we all have a right to a standard of health care.
Yeah.
And I think that essentially you have to meet the standard, whether you're an older, experienced person or not. The world has moved on from perhaps compromising on that standard.
Yep.
And as we've had that discussion with regards to farming and everything else, you have to demonstrate that you have attained that level.
And it's like the antivirals, pharmacies have to go through this training.
You can't just say, I can do it.
Yeah.
Because you're always planning for the worst case. So I presume, is that fair, Bill? Have I got that right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Hamish, you've got a question.
Yes, thanks, Bill. Good afternoon. I heard your comment in relation to Ashburton being likely to be a locality, and I was warmed my heart to hear you say that. We wrote a letter to the Minister of Health, I'm going to say 2 months ago. Clearly we sent it snail mail because we don't yet have an answer, but we did send him a letter requesting that Ashburton be designated a locality, and I'm wondering whether there's anything further we can do to prosecute that argument with the ministry or with the minister who hasn't quickly or easily responded to that request. Have you got any suggestions for us?
First thing is, I would, Georgie and I were talking about this, we would like Ashburton District Council to have a bit of a health subcommittee, and that'll be one of the tasks that we would like to work with you on, to sort of see how we could progress whatever is required for Ashburton. So I'm not coming with any preconceived ideas. One of the things that you're going to have to address is that Hakateri Marae is not affiliated to Ngā Tahu, more so affiliated to Arawhenua in Te Maru. So we're going to have to work with that particular group, and we're just trying to work through that at the moment. So Hamish, I would ask you to write to us as your PHO, or one as a PHO, and we can actually take that up with the the ministry, Te Watu, or whatever you call it now, and progress this matter and keep you in the loop. So,
yeah, that'd be great, because we saw the first 9 localities named, appointed and otherwise anointed very, very quickly, and then there hasn't been any since. To my knowledge anyway, and so we saw the logic in Ashburton being a locality. I don't know whether it's tied up with the affiliation of our marae or not, but we certainly haven't got a clear, we think we should be a locality,
yeah.
but we haven't had a clear steer as to why we haven't been, and what process to be followed.
I can ask you to write to us,
the minister
and
along.
Georgie and I can take that up with the likes of support from Carolyn, etc., etc.
Yeah, thank you.
That sounds like a good idea, and I think probably the House subcommittee could come into the next term of council if that was the wish. Councillor Lovett.
I just had a question here with your pharmacy staff. You're training them up to do bits and pieces. Do you think they have a future going forward that they may take up some of these minor elements, the colds, the flus, to keep the doctors busy doing what they really need to do and try to divert the public to go and see the pharmacist? Or do you think there's a way there?
The partnerships that we've developed with our pharmacy teams in Canterbury and in particular Ashburton is probably to be envied. And so the answer to your question is yes. I think we can do more collectively to ensure the well-being of our people, rather than having pharmacy out here, general practice out here. We've got to work through together, and I really would like to see, even into the future, this is me dreaming now, to have one patient record that we could all link it all up together, so that we could all see what's going on. So, Carolyn, have I spoken correctly here?
I think you have. Yeah, that would be good.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Georgie, for coming along and giving that presentation today. Really interesting discussion and lots of questions, so that was really good. We're going to break now for a quick cup of tea, and so, Bill, you're welcome to join us, and then we'll return in about 10 minutes to item number 13 with the Mayor in the hot seat. Thank you.
back, councillors, after the afternoon tea break, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Liz, for doing the first part of the meeting for me. That was great, thank you. And we're on to item number 13, the electronic card spend. Simon, we have you here. Anything further to add to your report?
Yeah, just a quick introduction. So this is a new tool we've got access to, and it really enables us to monitor changes to people's economic behaviour, not in real time, but quite quickly after the fact. The tool also enables us to monitor our investment in events, and really understand, and I've included some graphs in terms of the cash flight outside of the district. So the incoming spend and the outgoing spend is a really insightful tool. I've put forward the report today, really looking for some direction in terms of whether you find this useful and what future reporting you'd like me to bring back to the council chamber.
Okay, does the report's just generated anyway, or is it extra work to abstract the information?
There's a component of it that's generated and can be just cut and paste out or downloaded out. Once you start getting into specific locations or specific types of retail, that often involves a little bit of manual handling, but it's not. It's a really intuitive tool, so
it's not onerous.
It's not onerous.
Yeah, thank you. Some questions, Councillor Lovett?
I actually think it's a great tool to have for council to let us know how the district's trending, but how often do you think you'll do it? You know, it'd be good to, I personally like to see it done on an annual basis. Well, and do you think that you'd could filter out like Methven as a tourist town to get a spend there, and have Ashburton as well?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things the tool allows us to do is to calculate the quantum of where spend is coming from. So certainly as tourism returns to the district, we should be able to monitor the uplift in international spend as an example of what the tool can do.
And I think the question there was, how often do you think you'd produce it if you did produce it?
Through the chair, I've had an initial discussion with the chief executive about bringing some, given what the economy is doing at the moment and the way things are tracking with inflation rising and prices rising and the global supply chain constraint. We did talk about a more regular overview of what that what that reporting might be that I can bring to the council. So it may just form part of that reporting. If that's
quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly.
Yep.
And we can bring in a lot of the infometrics detail at that point as well.
Yep. Okay, thanks. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Page 207 absolutely astounds me. All the growling about groceries and fuel. Absolutely nobody can afford it and we're going to go broke. Look what they're spending on cafes, restaurants and bars. Twice as much. I mean, how does that equate to what the general population seems to be saying? Growling at supermarkets, growling at the price of petrol, but it's such a minor part of their spending.
Not everyone growls, but you hear the vocal ones.
Yeah, so remember that's looking at the Ashburton CBD, and what might be happening is that the spend is occurring outside, so within Ashburton town potentially, but outside of the CBD area. So it'll be picking up things like the Z fuel station next to McDonald's, but it may not be picking up the BP further out along the state highway.
Would that include New World Countdown in that?
Yes. No, sorry, no, that's outside of the CBD. So, outside of the area we've determined as the CBD. But we could report on the whole of Ashburton to give a clearer picture on that.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Simon. This is great. This is the CBD. Just to be clear, it's East Street to Moore to Havelock, back 2 blocks to Cass, is that that little?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I note point 10, I think this is, the spend data is a good indication of the health of the current CBD and will be useful in determining future projects, and I think that's important with regards to your, through the chair, with regards to the role of the Economic Development Manager in managing projects when you look at the impact of Wheels Week. And you can see that the impact, we've just discussed sustainable farming, we need to also acknowledge that this is another sector of our community that needs support. And also it's very interesting is when we come up to the next point, which will be the pedestrian count activity, and I think that the two would marry together very nicely. My question is related to the inflation. Is inflation factored into these figures?
No. No, so it
These
will
are
be
just gross dollar figures.
absolute spend.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if
But it will be in there.
if a widget cost $10 3 months ago, it may cost $15.
So it might be $15 last week, so we don't really know if this is an increase in spend or is it a drop, but this the same number of units, you know, if you're going to the supermarket and bought 100 widgets.
Yeah, so if you, I mean, it stands to reason that 6 months ago, if you went and did an identical shop to the shop you did, you will have spent more yesterday, for argument's sake.
So it may not be a growth in actual activity, and this is where we need the pedestrian count. It might be just the same activity, same number of ice creams or whatever you're buying, and they cost more.
So what we can do in that is we, instead of providing specific spend data, we can provide transaction data, which is more of an indicator of activity.
That's right, and again, and not to bang on that same old point, and if we marry that with our number of people that are actually in the town at any one time over some sort of consistent measure, which I'm not too wedded to any particular measure, then I think that would give very, very useful information. And I have one more point to make, which I've temporarily forgotten, so I'll have to get back to you.
Councillor, sorry, if I can just add on the CBD point that you sort of alluded to. The graph on page 206 is really showing that the CBD has flatlined over the last 5 years. So we can go back 5 years historically with all the data sets. What is clear is the commentary that the council's investment in the CBD was a handbrake to the retail isn't quite true. There isn't really a change in pattern outside of, you can see the 2 COVID lockdowns we had. That's really where the hurt from the retailer's perspective was. So, but what this is clearly showing is that we have a CBD that is urgently needing some new thinking and some new activity from the retailers. It's flatlining, and what we're doing is we're losing retailers, and it's being masked a little bit by the inflationary aspects that Councillor Cameron sort of alluded to as well. So a bit of care when reading you know, I think if we measured the retailer's activity, it probably is on a slight downward trend, whereas spend is on a very slight upward trend. But it is ringing alarm bells that our CBD needs some attention.
Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Electronic cards. What cards do that include? Just bank cards?
No, anything that goes through the electronic banking system. So there are 2 clearing houses, and this data set picks up both of them. So it would be bank cards, credit cards, but it would include things like Rural Co cards as well.
Okay. So your argument is that we should, your observation is that we should do this, as you suggest. Have we had time for what we have done as this council, which was actually altered the planning rules so that businesses kind of had to stay inside the CBD? Do we wait till that it takes effect? Or in your opinion, are you saying that takes no effect? If you do, I disagree with you, but I'll welcome your opinion.
I'm not sure that I can correlate between the spend and that.
Sorry?
I don't think I can correlate between the spend and that policy decision. All I can say from the data is that we are losing retailers from the CBD. The effect of that is being masked by an inflationary effect, and you know, what we're actually seeing is a moderate quantum of spend taking place. They're rising slightly, but actually it's rising from less retailers, and I think the inflation effect is having an impact on that rise. I think what we actually are experiencing is a slight decline in activity in that CBD, and that's, if you take this data and then you take the feedback from the retailers in there, that would correlate better. I can't answer that. Policy determination, that's a bigger analysis we'd have to do.
Okay, I'll try again. Council, Mr Mayor, if I may, Council has finished its revamp, so the CBD looks all nice and pretty. We've done a district plan change to try and keep businesses in the CBD. As the head of the Ashburton District Council's economic section, what's your advice to reverse this trend?
We need to drive retailers into the CBD. At the moment there is sprawl of retailers and hospitality providers down into that. So the Kmart development we're seeing a number of hospitality providers go down there. Ideally, those kind of providers would be in the CBD, which is what the policy, I understand, is trying to fix and trying to encourage them to locate into the CBD. I understand, and I'm not sure if it's public knowledge, so I won't name the retailers, but I understand there are one or two reasonably sized retailers who are about to relocate across the main road out of that CBD area. So yeah, we and then there are other implications, which is getting a bit off topic, but around the earthquake proneness of some of the buildings and the need for some of those retailers to move out whilst repairs or rebuilds are affected. So what I'm signalling is that there is work that we need to be mindful of those impacts happening in our CBD, and we need to think carefully about how we help the retail sector respond to those impacts.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr Mayor. I don't think my question was answered how I wanted it answered. I wanted some suggestions on how we could move forward. What I got was that we've already done it, the district plan, which is the only thing available to us, and we've done that. So I was really looking forward to some suggestions, and I didn't get it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
There may be no suggestions that to hold the retailers in the middle of the CBD if they wish to move out. But, yeah, you may well like to take it offline as well. You may like to take it offline later with some. Yeah, if you have a suggestion for them. Just before I go to Councillor McMillan, Saturdays and Sundays, or early Saturday afternoons and Sundays, the spend is down, obviously because the shops aren't open. And if they were open, you don't know whether the spend would go up or down unless they opened. I suppose some information like this might show the retailers there's a gap on Sunday because they're not, and may be worthy trying something, as Angus suggests.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can't make them open, but they maybe suggest that they do.
Yeah, and through the chair, if you turn to page 209, you'll see the net outflow from the district, and Saturdays, well, Sundays are the main day that pops out on that graph as people leaving principally to Christchurch to go and shop. So
yeah.
So yeah, there is that question of if the town centre was open, would people stay, or is there just far more diversity in Christchurch, and it's a bit of a family day out? I don't have the answer to the question, but it's a good question.
Yeah, there's evidence there to show they're still spending.
Yeah,
but it's not in Ashburton because they can't.
That's right.
If they were open, would they? Don't know. They'd have to do it, try it to see. But worth progressing with them perhaps. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, and that was pretty much what I was going to bring up as well. But I was wondering whether this report could go to the business association, or you take it to some Ashburton businesses and say, look, we've got this evidence here that this is what the trends are doing. And I also think that it'll be really interesting to do a similar, when we're talking about doing it maybe quarterly, but once Kmart is open, and see if that, I mean, I know it's outside the CBD area, but will it bring more people into Ashburton? I mean, you hear of groups in Timaru quite excited about just driving to Ashburton instead of into Christchurch to Kmart, so whether that will make an effect. But I'm just, wondering whether this report could go out to the business association so that they can see it. Is there not a business association at the moment? I don't know.
There's a retailers, Bob McDonald and co. What are they called? That's probably the avenue to take. There was a small group there of retailers who do get together occasionally. So that this report is online, but it's a summary of that report, so the full report might like to go to them with this one. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Page 209. I presume that is the whole of the district, not just the Ashburton town. And it surprises me that how do they work out that domestic credit cards are spending twice as much outside the district than in? Do they go by the names where the credit cards are based from? I mean, that's where I have arguments with the Tourism New Zealand. There's a lot of credit cards in the Ashburton district who are people that have moved to the district from Te Kuiti, whatever, and their credit cards are actually registered as Te Kuiti. So how do they get these figures here?
So that will be a limitation if people have moved to the district and haven't updated their home address with their bank, then the information, the intel will be linked to that address. I'm not. I mean, obviously, it's something you have to bear in mind when you're reading the data. That there may be people who are outside of the district who now live here, and that wouldn't correlate. But I think, given the amount of spend going on here and the numbers that probably applies to, you can be fairly confident that this is telling a pretty accurate picture.
Are you not surprised that Ashburton district spends 13 million outside the district than in? Would you?
I think some of those bigger ticket items, certainly, from observation, people are travelling outside of the region to buy some of those things.
Sorry. Councillor Cameron, got two more questions.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick, I'll just record what I was going to say. I would suggest that we do the report quarterly if it was acceptable to everybody. And I think with regards to the data gaps that Councillor Wilson raised, I think they're valid, but if they're consistently applied over a period of time, it won't make any material difference.
Lynette?
Have we got access to the data before the CBD was done up to compare back then to now? Because it would be quite interesting to have a look, if we could, where we sat then and where we sat now, and a lot of the differences. A lot of people are buying online and they haven't come back to shopping in the shops. And
so if I can take you back to page 206, the graph on page 206 is a 5-year view, so it goes back to 2016. And it shows the gradual decline, and so it's a marginal decline up until the point that the revitalisation works were done. Then we got hit by, so the big gap in the graph in May 21 is COVID, the COVID lockdown, and then it goes through, and you see another gap in September 21.
Sorry, I was just thinking it was month by month.
So it's really flat. It's really flat in terms of the quantum that is being spent in those 4 apps.
Last question, Councillor McMillan.
I was actually going to move
okay.
if there were no further questions that we received the electronic card spend report.
Seconder. Councillor Rawlinson. No further discussion or debate. Councillor Cameron.
I was just going to second it.
Oh, okay. Put the motion that we receive the electronic card spend report. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Over the page to 212. 212. Measuring activity in Ashburton CBD. Again, Simon is here. And Simon, anything further to add to your report?
No, nothing further. Manuel.
Nothing further to add. Councillors, any questions? No questions.
Oh, I've got a question if that's okay.
212 on one.
Through the chair, if I know the pedestrian count has been requested for a long time, but does it put us in a situation where if the count's not that great, then shops or businesses will think that it's not a good idea to open a business in the CBD, and in the end it ends up sort of working against us. I mean, is it normally pedestrian counts, or they normally work in favour of with the information that comes back? I suppose I'm thinking in a roundabout way. Yeah.
What information do you want to gather, and what are you going to do with it? What purpose will it serve?
Can I answer that question?
Yeah, you answer it if you can.
In preparation for today, I was reading about Christchurch, and they're introducing many cameras in their CBD to quantify the pedestrians. And the reasoning, this is a staff article, the reasoning was to give confidence to investors in the CBD, give confidence to retailers and building owners in the CBD before they invest. Your point, Liz, is well taken, but you cannot ask people to invest on the untruth. You know, you have to have integrity, especially council, in how we behave and in our data. And if we know that our CBD is declining, I mean, we may get a massive big national retailer coming in who would reverse that decline. So there's a lot of opportunity in that, and it also just informs the community. But I don't think if we have a viable town and a viable CBD, then I think there's no doubt that people will invest and be confident in investing in the town. By not providing that information, leaves a gap in their sort of their due diligence and may act in reverse.
Councillor Lovett?
I sort of look at it, what are we trying to achieve, with this? The card data, to me, would be more important, giving you an actual picture to try and attract new retailers, wouldn't it, to the district? And it's the sheer cost of this going forward. Are we going to get value for money out of it?
Through the chair, the card data certainly is a very tidy indicator of the outcome of what's spent in the CBD. Where it misses is it doesn't measure the vibrancy, So I guess the question for council to consider is is there a value in knowing who's in the CBD that's not spending money, and then is there a question around, well, what are they utilising the CBD for, and is it just about retail spend, or is it about something else? Drawing off what Councillor Cameron said as well, Christchurch, so I went and met with Christchurch City about the way that they're using their foot traffic data. So they gave me the example of one of the areas they've got cameras in at the moment is the area where the new stadium is intended to go. Now, there's nothing there at the moment, so card spend data doesn't give you an indication about how that place is going to change. But what they've done is they've put in cameras so they can monitor as that development progresses what actually happens. So they'll pick up the card spend data increasing in that area, but also they'll get a sense of how people are interacting with the area and what times of day and nights it's. So that's where pedestrian counts can help. The issue, I guess, is the investment that to put this in going to sort of be of value in decision making. I mean, I will take all of the data that I can get in making decisions, but obviously data comes at a price, and that's your decision, not mine.
Would using the parking sensors when they go in have a give you the same information? Ashburton has an affinity with cars. We don't like to walk very far, and I know when the parking sensors were in previous to CBD upgrade, we did get some information to show how busy or not they were and the average stay in a car park. Data like that might be for Ashburton a better way of measuring the busyness of the CBD. And we have that information before it was revitalised as well. So if they went in with that, might assist. But I'm not saying we shouldn't look at it in the 23-24 budget. But in the meantime, parking sensors may alleviate the need. But go to Lane.
I've got one comment to you. I know that we put monitors in there on East Street, but it's only East Street. The CBD is more than that. My question is, in your proposal you've got two cameras basically on East Street with Burnett Street and Tancred Street. What about Cash Street? That's part of the whole CBD as well. We're looking at one wee part. Is that enough, or do we need more?
So we talked to Christchurch City about the number of cameras. They've got 21 cameras, I think. It may have grown since I talked to them, but their advice is you don't need to measure everything that moves. You just need to measure. You just need to measure the access points that people predominantly walk through, and it's about giving you a sense of how people are utilising the area, not a definitive count. It's just impossible to capture every which way that somebody might walk through, and if somebody's walking constantly up and down, that will skew the results. So the company that I've been to see what the cost of doing this would be were the recommended company from Auckland and Christchurch. They're doing work with a number of councils, so that there's a good pedigree. So as an indicator of giving you a cost today, their advice was start small and look at how useful the data is, and then you can expand from there. And the sky's the limit, but obviously there's a budget that comes with the sky being the limit as well.
Councillor Mackay.
When you're ready, I'll move.
I've got a question from Councillor Cameron, have we? Or we want to move into debate?
I'll second.
Oh, yeah. We'll move the motion. Councillor Mackay move. Second up. Councillor Cameron. Over to debate.
Mr Mayor, this is that council considers the project as part of the 23-24. That's a new council. We're offering the new council a suggestion. Yeah, quite happy.
Good. Okay. Councillor Cameron.
I think everybody knows my view on pedestrian counts. I think, and I'll be voting for this initiative. I'd like to have done it earlier. I think if you're investing 15, 16, 17, 18 million in the CBD, you need to measure the success or otherwise of that investment. We also need to encourage additional investment from private landlords and private business people into the CBD. A modern central business district cannot do that without at least giving the nod to the reality of the world, and that you need to generate economic benefit for people to invest. and you have to somehow demonstrate that if you can't get decent dollars, which we've understood through the tourist data, and it's very tricky to get dollars per unit, then you need to have a proxy for that. And the most sensible and reasonable proxy is how many people in town. Most people that go to town buy a cup of coffee or whatever they do. And I think to not have a pedestrian count when we have two in the building across the road, when people come in to pay their rates, we count how many people go into the building, which actually arguably could yield no economic benefit to the district, I think is short-sighted, and I think we definitely do need to invest in a pedestrian count in our town. The cost, I think, is reasonable. I mean, I know that this company, I've did a little bit of looking online, seem to be everywhere, and they seem to have the systems in place. So it's all minimal head count, because it's all data driven. You can just download the software and get the answers. And I think it may or may not be useful, but I think if it's not useful, we can review that down the line, but I'd be incredibly surprised if it's not useful.
Okay, there's no more further speakers for or against. Councillor Lovett.
I'll just say, after listening to this, I think it's probably would be good for the future to, getting numbers and looking at when we have big events in the town, the foot traffic that creates down in the centre of the town, and it might just help us, going forward, whether we do put many things down in there, if people are going to congregate there with these larger events, it might help us to make decisions going forward to have a bit more vibrancy down there. So, I will support.
Okay, there's no more speakers for or against. I'll put the recommendation, which is the council considers this project as part of the 23-24 annual plan process. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. So it'll be revisited again then. Page 217, Economic Development Quarterly Report, April, May and June. Simon again. Question, anything further to add?
So just sorry, one typo. I got my sports mixed up, and then on page 219, 9.3, the funding application was not New Zealand softball; it was New Zealand handball.
Handball. Mm. Just while we're on that same page, just above Glow was awarded $10,000. What's that? What's Glow?
Glow in the Park. Through Glow in the Park.
Oh,
so
nice.
the event that happened last weekend.
Yeah, right. Good. And the Whiteout Festival, is that?
Through the chair, that's an event that happens in Methven each year, the Winter Whiteout.
It's happened?
No.
No, it's coming up in October.
2 weeks? No, in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Right. Okay, thanks. Any questions, councillors? We've got Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I've got a question. And just regarding the Whiteout Festival, so that was held last year at the Methven Racecourse. It's a music festival, and then they're wanting to hold it again. I think it's in about 2 weeks' time. But my question is, you've got a new Welcoming Communities advisor, which is great, and she's working on the workforce plan. Are we going to see the return of those, I can't remember, it was the Employment Expo that was held 2 or 3 times, sort of probably pre-COVID, but I thought they were quite successful events. Will they come into play in this workforce plan, or is that something separate?
So through the chair, yeah, it's on the consideration. It's in the consideration mix of activities we do. It's going to need. I think we're going to need to dust it off and bring it up to date a little bit, and really ensure that there's a real good transference between the young people attending or the people attending and the employers. So keen to have that quite employer-led, so that there's lots of options for young people to consider, particularly young people to consider in Ashburton. But yeah, look, it's still early days with the activities that are going to drop out of that plan.
Thank you. So supplementary, the workforce plan led by the Welcoming Communities advisor is not just for newcomers. No, thank you.
No, I think we've seen a need, and you heard it with Bill previously, for us to really get on top of some of these skill shortages that are crippling all our industry sectors at the moment.
Councillor Cameron?
I have the same question around the not the same question, a question around the workforce plan. How do we correct these labour market settings that are broken? Because I was sort of with supply and demand, so what you're saying is that it's broken. Are we different to any other region with regards to broken labour market settings?
This is an opinion.
No, a question.
My opinion. Yeah. From my observations, most areas in New Zealand are being crippled by a broken labour market at the moment, and there's a variety of reasons for that. What we're doing is unpacking those reasons and looking to see what we can do. So, you know, the chances of changing government stance on immigration policy seems to be pretty minimal. So, given that constraint, what can we do, and how do we attract people back into the labour market that might be in other sectors, or who are operating in other sectors may not be contributing in the labour market at the moment? It's really small numbers. I mean, you know, hence the reason for skill shortages.
And you'll come back to council with suggestions?
We'll come back. So that we'll come back firstly in a workshop at the end of August with an update on the economic development strategy, and that will form part of the output of that. So with some ideas that we then go out to the community and consult with as part of the finalisation of that strategy.
Just on the workforce plan, I think I asked the Chief Executive, and we passed it on, about a promotional video which some employers asked out there to use, and I think you're progressing that.
Yeah, that's now a work in progress. Mr Mayor, I've got a date, I think my recollection says sometime in August for that project to be completed via our communications team.
And also when we, Deputy Mayor and I were at Local Government Conference, we talked with the coordinator of Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, and there looks like there'll be some monies coming towards this council to promote and get young people into work. It seems to be, they are under 25, seem to be the highest group that is unemployed in district. We're very low unemployment, but that one bumps up. So we think we may have some monies coming towards assisting in that. We'll know in a couple of weeks, which could be up to $100,000, I think, was it? Wasn't set, but no, it wasn't. The amount was not set, correct. But hopefully that'll be positive and gets some work done on that. Councillor Lovett.
The event calendar, are you reaching out to some of the service clubs around Ashburton to put in their events on here? Because I know we're doing a Festivus Forest and we don't want to clash with council again this year with the County Lions. We want to do it the same week as the Christmas tree.
So through the chair, so my intent is when we get the new events advisor on board, which is going out today to be advertised, which is the replacement for the position that was disestablished during COVID, that person will really take the coordination of what's going on in the district by the horns, and have a single source where people know where to go to get information. At the moment, we've got websites all over the show. It's just a mess. And it does two things. The public find it hard to find out what's going on because there's multiple sources to go and find information. And from a planning and the point you're making, which we don't want big events sort of clashing, we want a nice full calendar where people can do stuff every week of the year. And so that's what we're aiming for in that, to create a real vibrancy to ensure that, and the other thing with the service clubs is the volunteers then get pulled between multiple events if they're happening at the same time. So we're trying to sort of alleviate the demands on their time as well.
I'm pleased to hear it because it's been a bit messy. And have you got a date on the Christmas festival one yet?
No, I don't. But I mean, it's traditionally the last weekend of November that the Christmas tree gets lit. I'm really keen to look at how we build on the program that we've had historically, so that there's a real Christmas festival, I guess, leading right up to the big day.
Yeah, that's what we're planning to do as event centre again with all our Christmas trees. We do it every second year, and we want to feed into the council week. Right.
Councillor Mackay.
Mr Mayor, thank you. My question relates to Pillar 2. Number 6, the update. A survey was sent to councillors to gain feedback on the 10 concepts. The results are not in yet, obviously. I'm actually very disappointed, so my question is, Mr Mayor, is to councillors. How come we can push the Chief Executive to meet timelines, etc., for his staff to perform in timely manners around potholes, roads and all that sort of thing, when we can't even get a survey in? I put mine in and I've been wondering why the sign is not up yet, because it's been so long. So my question is to councillors, Mr Mayor, and I'd love to hear the replies. Thank you.
Do you think the survey was only a week ago, 2 weeks ago? The survey was 2 weeks ago, it came out to councillors? So there's been 2. See, and how long ago was that? 2 weeks? Week ago. Yeah.
I sent it out prior to, just as you were all going on the break at the start of, and there were some councillors that I didn't get a response from, so I sent out a reminder a week ago, and I now have the results, and I'm crafting a paper which will come to you in due course.
Yeah. Did you have a full response to the survey?
As far as I can see, it's anonymous, so I can't see who said what.
Oh, you haven't got numbers?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I have got, I do know what you've chosen collectively, and I'll craft that into a paper and bring it back to you.
Thank you. Stuart.
Yes, thanks, Mr Chairman. Page 219, item 9. That regional event panel, is that ECAN giving grants? Is it? Where does that money come from?
Through the chair, it's a government pot of money that came from the government to help support the event industry. So Christchurch NZ is the regional the RTO, administer that fund, and we get a proportion of the monies that was allocated to Canterbury, and it's from memory, it's about just over $300,000 for a 4-year period.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Item 15 on page 220, the supergroup. Could you explain a little bit about that, please?
So this was part of the Land Use Adaptation Changing Climate project. We invited a number of farmers in to discuss the outputs of a report that we had done by the Agribusiness Group. So instead of running a series of focus groups, we thought it prudent to try a different method, which is a method that I've used historically in a previous role. So the notion of a supergroup is it's a number of focus groups that take place at the same time. The added value of it is that you can bring all of the groups back for a plenary discussion, so you're not just getting small groupthink in a one-off environment, but you can bring those small groups together and have a broader conversation, which is what we did at the Ashburton Hotel. And there was between 30 and 40 farmers attended that supergroup, and some really interesting feedback, which you'll see in a report that's currently being developed, or the final report's being developed for our land, the Land Use Adaptation and Climate Change project.
So some of that, your learnings, I guess I'd call it, from that, is that feeding into what Richard's doing as well?
Absolutely, yeah. So I don't know if you probably won't remember his kind of journey diagram, but stage 1 of the journey was this land use adaptation project.
Thank you.
Just item number 7, citizenship ceremonies are restarting, which is really good news. They haven't been going for a year now, so the backlog must be huge. Talking here about the people who missed, who will have got their certificates in the mail and don't necessarily have to attend or want to attend a or had the opportunity to attend a citizenship ceremony, but would like to attend. And I know when we had a pause last year in COVID, some weren't contacted to see if they wanted to back it up and come and have the presentation from the Mayor. It was important to them to be formally done, so it'd be good to contact all those previous ones and ask them if they wish to proceed in the ceremony.
So yeah, through the Mayor, we're working with the Department of Internal Affairs at the moment to just establish what the process is going to be. But my understanding is that all of those people that missed out will be offered the opportunity.
Yeah.
So once we have an idea of the quantum of how many people want to engage in a ceremony, then we'll provision accordingly. And it might be that we have to do a couple of sittings. The other thing we've been working with DIA on is if the COVID conditions go back to a higher setting, how can we progress with those ceremonies even under a higher setting? So,
well, the other level is red, and we've been there and done that. So we're at orange now. So I think we know the answer to that. But yeah, let's get the ceremonies underway and clear the backlog. That would be nice. Councillors, any further questions? If not, someone like to move that we receive the April, May, June 2022 Economic Development Quarterly Update. Councillor Lovett.
I'll second.
Councillor McMillan. Any further discussion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you. Next item, thanks, Simon. 16 is naming of parks and roads. Page 222. Welcome, Ian. Ashbury subdivision. Recommendation for anything further to add to the report? No. Councillors, any questions of Ian? Lane? Oh, no. No questions. Do a mover? Lane?
I will move it as this.
And Stuart? Any debate? Lane?
I'm quite happy with the names, reading through how it came together. What I really appreciate is the name from the park, the Proctors. I know them quite well. It's nice to see.
No further debate. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you, Ian. It was simple. Item number 17, financial reports. Erin is available. Council will go through them just about page by page, but faster order than that. 230, 231. You'll have read it, so when I get to the page, just stop me. If I go too far, I can go back. $232, 233. Just a question on road, and you may know, and you may not. The 580, this is 2.4 unfavourable variance million. 582 come from the budget. Some come from 961, come from low risk. Where does the rest come from?
That'd be a question for the roading manager.
Right.
Just following the question,
under the variance, 582 for the rain event last year.
Yep.
Come from the redirecting cash budget.
Yes.
The balance 961 was from the disaster self-insurance reserve. So that added up as 1.4-ish, 1.5. The unfavourable variance is 2.4. So where does the rest come from?
Oh, I'll have to get that. I don't know offhand. I'll find out.
Yeah, we'll get the exact. It may well be Waka Kotahi subsidy.
Could be, yeah.
Would be the most logical answer, but let's check it out.
Could be. I'll check.
Okay, thanks. 234, 35. 236, 37. 238, 39. 240, 241. 242, 243. And 243, refuse collection, 240,000 unfavourable. Talks about the cost of extended operating hours, 6 months in winter and 6 months in summer. That's a sort of a factor, really. Winter's 6 months, well, it doesn't explain the...
Through the chair, no, that comment is actually incorrect, because when we did look at the costs, there were hours changed, and that related to a difference in what was in the contract, but upon further investigation, it was in the budget, so that's not quite correct, that comment.
Right.
So it is in the budget. It doesn't account for the extra. What does affect the extra unfavourable is the cost of fuel and the impact that's had on the cost fluctuation on the contract.
Yep. And just down a bit below the last paragraph, we purchased a tractor costing 46,000. Is it our job to purchase tractors for the contractor?
No, that's actually just it's to be used on site. It's our asset, and it's to help reduce our expenses. So it came out of our current budget.
Wouldn't the contractor provide all the machinery and stuff for doing the contract?
Not all machinery. No.
Who would drive the tractor?
Oh, the operator would, but it's our asset.
Strange but true, I suppose. Yep. 244, 245. Yeah, Councillor Mackay.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'll try and help you out. So we own the tractor. So do we lease it to the contractor? Do we rent it to the contractor? What financial services do we get recompensed for this tractor that we own? How do we make this tractor work as a profitable item of plant for us, the Ashburton District Council?
It's an asset that's used to assist with the movement of the material. I'll have to look into the exact details as to when it was bought and the reasons behind it. I haven't got the details with me now, but I can certainly provide them to you. Craig did do a business case justification to support the purchase of it some time back, so I'll have a look at that and share that with you.
Mr. Mayor,
yep.
The reason why I asked is I haven't seen it, so I presume it's there, is it?
Yes, at the Resource Recovery Park.
Yeah, it's there pushing up cardboard. Is that all it does?
I don't know exactly what it does. I'll find out and get more detail for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. 244, 45. 246, 47. 248, 49. Carolyn.
I just have a question with regards to COVID. It's just mentioned a few times as the reasons for our cost overruns, and I'm assuming that's a lot of that's due to salaries and wages. Are we able to access, as a council, the government support for salary and wages due to COVID?
Hamish?
I would have to specifically research that in some detail. Originally, no. I remember very clearly the first lockdown, council did not qualify. But my recollection is also that in the later settings there was some support available to us. Certainly our People and Capability Manager can provide a more detailed answer, and she may be joining us at some point.
One additional, if we are able to, will we?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely.
When Sarah's available, when she's available, will he be?
Yeah, yes, and we apply for all the support that we're eligible for, and I think it did change across the 2 years. But I see Jane's lights on as well.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor, Sarah Mosley did mention to me that we are in the process of applying at the moment. Apparently it's quite a difficult application process, but we are certainly in the process of applying.
Okay. Diane?
Just on elderly persons housing, page 247, a variance there due to the sale of a property. I didn't know we sold elderly persons housing, or was that house on All Street?
Sold one at auction, didn't we?
Yeah.
No, it's developer.
Was it the All Street or somewhere like that? Like
There's two on the same. Colin, have you got a speaker or not? Just refresh our memory.
So it was the 2 units on Kitchener Street?
Kitchener, thank you. I wondered if that was...
See Sarah's online.
Sarah. You're there, Sarah? Could you have an update on the wage subsidy, if there is one?
Yes, I'm hoping that you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Yes, I just zoomed into the meeting, and to answer your question, we are applying for, I'm pretty sure it's called the short-term absence payment that's available. We were excluded, as Hamish said correctly, for the first 2 lockdowns, but this period of time, if our staff have absences, we are enabled to cover the first recover the first $600, I believe, from that. It is a process to get it, but we are undertaking that process and will continue to do so as long as it's available.
Thank you for that. Page 250, 51. Just question forestry, we just had a big win the other day, and we make their money out of logging trees after the wind generally. Have we got any trees to log after the wind the other day?
Through you, Mr Mayor, Colin may have more detail, but I did also make that inquiry of our forestry manager, and my understanding there are a number of trees down from the wind, and in conjunction with some of the damage from last year, I think I recall Terry saying there's some 50 or 60 hectares of logs that are to be salvaged and sold. He's also trying to balance a very unfavourable logging market price currently, so I was not looking to rush into that work when the price is reasonably unfavourable. So there is opportunity there, if that's the right way of describing it. There are certainly some trees lying down that will be processed.
Generally how we harvest here,
yeah,
the wind assists. 252, 53. Just on page 253, the bottom paragraph talks about a permanent variance. Another permanent variance exists for the town centre. Is that of 763,000? Is that already in our wash up we had earlier, or was it over and above?
I believe that is relating to Bering Square works.
East.
Yes.
Can we please, we'll look that up and get back to you, because that Bering Square East work hasn't commenced yet, so I can't see that's related to that. It'll be more related to the CB upgrade, and I don't know why that number is that number without going to do some work, so perhaps Neil, we can clarify that for council, please.
Cool. 254, 55. 56, 57. 258, 59. 260, 261. 262, 63. Stuart?
Yes, thanks, Mr Chairman. Mr Mayor, I see we've borrowed money. I remember the last council meeting or one before, we suddenly borrowed 10 or 20 million because we had a short-term cash flow, but then you go to page 264 and we've got 20 million on short-term, which seems strange.
The one will have rolled off now.
it seems in a very, very short period that we needed.
We've been carrying out quite a lot of capital expenditure that is budgeted to be loan funded, and we also needed to repay internal debt to transfer that to external debt, so that takes up a good 15 of that 20. So the rest of it generally at the moment relates to the new build.
And noting there are no internal borrowings now, everything's external.
At this moment in time, yes. At year end, because we can't just draw up a loan on the last day when we haven't done the work for that, there will be internal coming back through until that's made external again next year, if management wishes to do so.
Yep. 264, 265. Caroline.
I want to go back, please, to page 257. The reason for the variance with the parking, we're $143,000 under. We had problems in Auckland getting those sensors. Is that still the case through the chair? That is still the case, yeah.
Neil.
Still waiting on the delivery, still being delayed.
Because I see that Trueline are in the CBD at the moment doing niggles. Do they insert the car parking sensors? Is that their job, or would that be an independent?
No, it's the suppliers or the sensors. They come and install them.
And what about the sensors that were down East Street? Can we put those back in advance of the new ones coming?
I'm not sure. I don't know where they are. I'll find out.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Could be down Range Street. Or Kate Valley. Stuart.
While Mr. McCann talking about Trueline, are they, it's not on this budget, but they are doing free work, are they replacing panels that have been chipped or cracked or something?
That's correct, yeah. They're attending to all the outstanding items that have been identified. Yep.
When does that period finish?
It's a 12-month maintenance period, so it'll be November this year.
Yep. And page 266 is the EA Network Centre report. I think we asked last time for the negatives, if they could have brackets on them, be easier to comprehend, but the wee minuses are still sitting there.
They are at this stage because when we presented the April report, this was well and truly underway. Okay. So I would expect to see that in the June draft.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor, any further questions on the financial report? Could move in a second that we received that report. Councillor Brown, Councillor Cameron, all in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thanks, Sharon. Item 18, Mayor's report. I'd just like to thank the Deputy Mayor for when I was away. She stood in and did, when the Deputy Mayor's calendar is there as well, and there was quite a few things that she attended, so thank you, Liz, for that. Helped me have a good break, which was good, and no doubt gave you some experience on the big job of getting ready. Anything on the Mayor's report? There's a recommendation. Oh, hang on. There's one recommendation there that Ashburton District Council supports the Remuneration Authority's proposal to amend clause 11 and 12 of the local government members' determination. Councillor Mackay.
Mr. Mayor, as I will not be here in the next council, I move this recommendation, and I think it's good that for someone that's not going to be here to move it, so they can't actually be accused of partaking in a higher salary.
It's not. This one's not salary. It's if you live outside. No, it's not. It's living outside the district. Oh, sorry. Support. Yeah.
I've got a question.
Yeah, if you live outside, if you're elected a councillor or mayor and you live outside the district, then doing this will allow you to claim mileage, which at the moment it doesn't. It doesn't affect the council at this stage, but everyone lives here, but who knows in the future. Councillor Olsen?
I thought we were going to discuss it today, and I'm against it. I think if you live outside the district, we could pay mileage from the boundary, but we should not pay mileage outside. Somebody could live in Christchurch, could live in Dunedin. And if we've got this policy, every council meeting we get an air ticket. I hope our policy would be maximum we pay is from the town boundary. If they want a county boundary, if they live outside, it's their prerogative, especially if their permanent residence is outside the district boundary.
I'm just going to get a seconder on the motion, and the motion there is that we supports the Remuneration Authority to...
I'll second it, and then I'd just like to speak, if that was okay.
Yep, now it's open for debate.
And Philippa explained this to me in preparation for chairing the meeting today, and it was more about supporting a panel that could then decide if they were allowed an exemption for this, for the travel. So, for an example, I had to go and look after my parents in North Canterbury, and I was there for 2 months. I could apply for an exemption to get that mileage subsidised to travel for meetings. I think it's something that we should support, bearing in mind that we're now very good at doing Zoom and Teams meetings, so we're probably not going to come across this type of situation as much, because people will be able to join the meetings via Teams and Zoom. But I think it's a good backup to have, that we support that a panel can decide whether there's an exemption for certain councillors in case something happens, and it might only be a temporary manner. I don't think it's something that we should think that people outside the district are going to want to stand for council and then expect their mileage to be paid for every week. I think it's an exemption, and that we should be supporting this.
So every application would go to this panel and they make a decision on its own merits?
Yes, just noting on the bottom of page 267, councillors, that this council would make a recommendation or would indicate whether it supported or didn't support the members' application for travel support. So council would get to make express their view, and it would then go to the Remuneration Authority to make a determination on the specific circumstances. At the moment, as I understand it, the law simply says you can't. And this is to enable a consideration of the particular circumstances that a member may be facing.
And council would give a steer to the...
And the council gets an opportunity to express their view.
On a case-by-case basis. Councillor Cameron.
I am with Councillor Wilson. I think being a councillor is not being in employment, and I think to be given a petrol allowance if you live out of the community, given that we did approve alternative methods of participating in council meetings, I think is not appropriate, and I think it's a thin edge at the end of the wedge, and I certainly won't be supporting that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lovett. Hang on, Caroline, push that.
We're also talking here about holiday houses. You know, they may have a holiday house at one end of the district and they want to live out the other end of the district. There's all those Ks in between, and that would all be a permanent arrangement. You know, I won't be supporting it. If it was from the council chamber, perhaps to the side of the district, yes, but I think, yeah, we do this job because we love our job and we do it for the community, and yeah.
Just think of the example that Councillor Macmillan gave. If someone was that the councillor needed to be out of the district for a certain period of time to assist a family member or something, that they were actually compensated for that time they had to be out, on a case-by-case basis, not a given. I quite like the example, so I'm supporting the motion. Councillor Rawlinson?
Yes, I like the example that Liz gave, but my first thought when I read that was, is this about someone who stood for council here, maybe they live at, let's say, Glenroy or somewhere like that. It's not them being able to claim mileage to come into every meeting, or is that within this as well?
Well, they would have to put a case to the panel and probably come through the council first. We would support it or not, and the panel would decide. if it was
So it's
appropriate.
not, thank you, it's not
not a
allowing
given.
it to be a given.
It's not a given.
Thank you, that was the crux of my question.
Case by case basis. Councillor Cameron?
Just a point of clarification. So you were saying, say I moved to, I don't know, West Coast, and I couldn't come to council, and I put in submission to get extra fuel costs or mileage costs, that would come to this table, whoever is around this table, and they would say yes or no, and then it would go to the remuneration authority to say yes or no after that.
We would give them some guidance as to whether they should accept it or not. And in a case like yours, we would probably say, sorry, no, and then it would go off.
Yeah, so this council wouldn't say yes or no because that implies a decision. What you would do is, it says on the bottom of page 267, this council would provide the reasons why it either supports or doesn't support the application, and then the remuneration authority says yes or no.
So someone could apply to the council and it would be considered as a one-off ad hoc thing, but they could also apply on a regular basis, is that correct?
You'd have to be a councillor to apply.
Yes. At the moment, they simply can't get any support by law. This would enable specific circumstances to be weighed up and considered and potentially get some support.
Angus?
I'll have a right to reply when...
Still got another couple of lights on. Lynette?
If you took the holiday house scenario out of the year and the travelling backwards and forwards and just left it, as Liz explained about sickness or supporting a parent for a short time, I would fully support it. But I wouldn't be supporting it if someone's going to come in on council and want to use that for the whole 3 years. I don't think that's appropriate.
I think when it came around the table that the councillors would think that's not appropriate and give a suggestion to the panel, don't grant it.
Mr Mayor, without arguing for or against this, I'm reminded of the push from Local Government New Zealand and the government to increase the involvement in local democracy to try and encourage a wider group of people to stand for council, to vote at the election, to be involved in council life. And one of the motivations for this change may well be to, again, encourage someone who may not otherwise be able to stand to get involved in local government work because this opportunity is there for them to pursue. So there's another, perhaps a potential factor.
That's true.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Totally oppose the CFO's opinion. The council, we've got a district and we want people within the district to represent the district. If we go to that idea, we could have Christchurch people, Dunedin people, purely because of race, gender or something on our council. I totally disagree. Our council should represent this district, no matter who they are or what they are or their race, colour or anything. They've got to, I like to see people in the district, know the district, represent the people of the district, get these damn professional outsiders who'll come as professional councillors, be the worst thing that ever happened, especially some of these university do-gooding young ones, no life experience, turn up here, get paid to come, paid to be a councillor. Totally disagree.
Councillor Mackay, you want the right to reply?
Yes, please. I don't think the Chief Executive actually issued an opinion. I think he just offered a scenario that they hadn't been thought of, and I just want to follow on that scenario. For example, I approached someone the other day to see if they'd be willing to take my place, and they said no because my partner is up for a bank move. Well, God help me, one of the best in my mind to make a good councillor is not going to stand because her partner is up for a bank move that hasn't yet happened. With this in place, that person could take a risk, become a member of this council, and when their partner moved, if the partner moved, they might be able to tap into this, subject to the council giving a recommendation to the Remuneration Authority. I actually think this is a good thing. It actually gives more people the opportunity to put their names forward for this council.
Thank you. We put the motion. Councillor Cameron, I've had the right of reply, so there's no more debate. I'm going to put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4. And the casting vote is that the motion is passed. Thank you. Meryl, we had the LGNZ conference last week, which is not written in here. If there's any orders that we've attended, if there's any questions on that, the AGM is tomorrow of LGNZ by Zoom, and the Deputy Mayor will be voting on that. We know your feelings from the remits that are there because we've had them previously. We'll vote accordingly. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I will write a report for the next council meeting on the LGNZ conference. And if there's no other questions, I just wanted to...
Okay, good. Shall I'll just get a recommendation. We received the Mayor's report.
I'll move that, yeah.
Seconder for the Mayor's report, Councillor Wilson.
I've just got a question, Mr Mayor.
Oh, okay.
That late remit, I like that. I think that's a great idea. Local government in New Zealand is inclined to go off on tangents nowadays. They may have a reason, but I see them wanting to peel off stormwater. Well, I've never been had a chance to discuss that.
I don't think that was a remit. I think they put that in their submission to the Water Services entity bill, and that's LGNZ's view. We don't have that view at all. And they can, I think they want the stormwater to go later, I think was the gist of it.
Question, how can they do that? I thought it was a democratic organisation. How can they make up minds totally against a big percentage of their members?
I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it highlights the problems in accurately representing a multi-faceted membership, and it's impossible to represent everyone's view because there isn't one view, and so they partly need to consider their position and support what they think is the right thing to do, and it's a difficult place to be. There are some councils who would support stormwater being retained in council, and there are some councils who think stormwater shouldn't go at all, and neither should the other two, and there are some that think the whole lot have got to go at once. So how does LGNZ have a position on that? So in the end, they have their own working groups and their own thinking, and try and come up with what they think is a reasonable position on a whole raft of issues. But the Three Waters is one that has really highlighted the delicate balance they need to, or the road they need to walk along to try and accurately represent multiple views. Not dissimilar to council, in fact, trying to represent every ratepayer's view. That most issues will have different views out there, and in the end you have to balance all of those perspectives and do what you think is right, rather than try and accurately represent every single perspective.
Well, we have put a submission into the Water Services Entity Bill, and when we speak to it, that we will speak against stormwater being out of the Three Waters in the unlikely event that it proceeds. The motion there to receive the Mayor's report. Moved in Lane, Liz, seconded Stuart. All in favour, please say aye. Carried.
Can I just... Yeah, sorry, thank you. So in my report, on the 8th of July, the Mayor and I were both invited to a luncheon with the International Lions President. So I attended that, and they also had the official opening for the Methven walkway. So the International Lions President, I think he spent 3, maybe 4 days in New Zealand total. He came from the States. He had been to Timaru, Methven, he went to the Mayfield Lions changeover dinner, and then I think he went to Geraldine and then back to Timaru. But he presented this plaque to me, which forward to the Mayor. So every year the Lions International run a peace poster contest. I think they've been doing it for about 30 years. This one was the winner in 2019-20. It's titled The Journey of Peace, and it was drawn by a 12-year-old in China. So it's pretty impressive, and I'd just like to present that to the Mayor on behalf of Lions International. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We will
look good in the new library, I think.
we will hang that somewhere prestigious. Yeah, very nice. And I'll pass it around to you. We'll have a wee look. It's great. Thanks for that, Liz. It's well done. And no doubt you would have passed on their thanks to the headline for delivering it. Thank you. So that takes us to the end of the open part of the meeting. Move away.